Hey, I know if anyone's watching right now. Tonight's stream takes a little bit to start, but I'm just gonna chill and watch some stuff. And I'm not probably gonna chat a ton because my throat's been feeling a little sore, so sorry if I don't chat a lot. I'll type plenty in the chat though. Just gonna watch some goofy, what is this called? Danger Rangers. This looks good. And then maybe after this we'll watch like Cursed commercials. This is Cursed too, though. Like some, I guess, early 2000s safety commercial thing with weird anthropomorphic animal. Well, when are anthropomorphic animals not? Wait, I'm an anthropomorphic animal. Oops. Get him! Save him! Do it! Danger Rangers! It's not a bad tune, actually. They synchronized that telephone. Danger Rangers, Danger Rangers, Danger Rangers, Danger Rangers. Wild Wheels. That raccoon looks familiar. I don't know why. Where have I seen that before? It looks like a Don Bluth knockoff. America. Uh-oh, we got hooligans. Well, maybe I'll pause this for a second until people get here. Just...
Shocked.
Shocked. Sorry, I almost got the issue solved. Just be a few more minutes here. I know if you want to suggest any videos we can watch besides what I'm going to watch, so you can do that.
Music is too loud. Elino Lal. Can't hear you.
Okay. Should be fixed now.
Does it match my eyes? No! But it matches yours!
Wolf is kind of a dick. Okay, so you don't have to be mean to the hippo. I just love how generic these punk hooligan voices are. Oh, the humanity! Okay, he just outright stole that. That's, I mean, above all else, that's a crime. I don't know why, but walruses creep me out.
Who, I would ask you, knows this city like the back of his hand?
Oh, look, the kids are playing.
Whoa! You're bad! No,
Viserys.
you're bad!
Mope lurk, mope lurk.
No, both of you are
Hi,
bad,
Viserys.
but I am the baddest!
He's the baddest.
Oh, you're bad, buddy! No, you are the baddest!
Oh, look at those guys. Who moves? Come on, let's see if we can
Elino
ride
Lau.
with them.
He's the leader of the bunch.
Wait, guys. My dad says it's not safe to ride on the street without a grown-up. Kate, those guys aren't.
Oh my
kids.
god, Kate.
But
Don't be Karen.
let's ride. Check it out. You bad enough to do this?
No, but we're bad enough to do this!
Ah!
Oh, he did. Oh, he did. He did. Wait, what? Oh, okay. Of course they're located in Mount Rushmore. Seems like an odd place.
I was just thinking, you know what the Danger Rangers need?
Not a theme song.
A theme song. Danger's in their name, safety is their game. The Danger Rangers.
Safety alert! Safety alert! There's a level 3 recreational safety infraction in New York City. All Danger Rangers to the hovercraft.
Danger Rangers. Danger Rangers.
Really hear Charlie Adler in that.
Could use more of a salsa beat. Chicka chicka chung, chicka chicka chung.
Chugga chugga chunk.
All systems are a go, go, and go, Danger Rangers.
Thanks for the backup, Gabriella.
That's what the Chief of BR Base Operations is for. Back up and blast off. Ah. I love my job.
Anyone notice like there's an odd trend that a lot of birds in animation tend to be Latino? Is that because of Saludos Amigos, maybe?
I fear it's wheeled warriors without safety helmets day in New York again.
That voice, I can't... Oh, what voice does it remind me of?
I'll save the beagle on the bike.
Is it him I'm thinking of? From Powerpuff Girls?
Oh, sure, sure! Leave me and bite with the 900-pound girl, Rilla.
That is a chimpanzee, my little cheese heaver, and she is no more than 60 pounds dripping wet.
I'll give you dripping wet!
Oh no! I've been cheesed!
Never sees it coming.
Man, hearing a lot of Animaniacs voice in this.
Oh no, he's headed into a construction site. That's a real keep out high grade hazard. Safer, give me a danger scan on the immediate area.
Construction sites look like exciting places, but they are not for fun.
There are big holes you can fall into, big machines that can bump you bad, all sorts of dangerous tools and equipment, not to mention explosions. It's fun to pretend with toy trucks and toy tools.
Okay, what construction site has explosions? I don't any construction site that has explosions. Like, you don't build and have explosives in the same location. If there's an explosion at a construction site, it's like an accident, usually.
There's nothing cool about it. You could hurt yourself riding like that.
Hey, you're one of the Danger Rangers. Am I in trouble?
You need a crash
Elino
course,
Lau.
kid, but not that
Ramps
one.
and derbies.
You need a crash course in bike safety.
Ramps and derbies. Oh, are we gonna see bacon?
Give me your safety line.
Oh, okay, I got a good one. Kids, always be Danger Ranger ready. And how is that? Not bad, huh?
Nice, Sully. But
This-
I meant this line.
Okay, this seal isn't like dummy thick like Chonk. He's dummy thick, like literally a dummy and thick.
Gotcha.
The Danger Rangers. All right.
This
Where
is
was
so
that
the
rope
safety seal
attached
checking in.
to?
Target secured.
That's a big 10-4 over here at the construction site, too.
I'm kind of bothered by how good the animation for this is.
With our motorbike, but whoa! Target's incoming. Fast as a
I've seen worse things approved.
Looks like a job for my new rocket rocket launcher.
Now, why do I not like the sound of that?
It's my latest invention.
How's it work? Hang on, kid. What now, Bert?
Your bullet helmet not only protects your head from bumps and bruises, Squeaky, it also contains a mylar parachute. Tug the chin strap and voila.
Okay, this better work.
That timing.
Mission accomplished.
And so we followed the older guys.
That
down
guy
the
hit his
street
voice cue
and-
dead on, but the
Whoa,
sound
whoa,
editors
whoa.
killed it.
Hold the phone, Banana Curls. What older guys?
They were real gnarly riders. But they weren't wearing any safety equipment. Sabo, check for any other unsafe riders we missed.
What were you guys thinking?
We weren't.
That's for sure. Okay, so from
Do
now
they
on,
also
what's the
cover like
danger-proof
safe
plan?
sex, or are they only like play safety? Like, where does their safety stop? I mean, they're involved in construction site safety, so I imagine they have some like unionized
Elino Lau.
representation.
You're
This
riding on
looks like a
skates,
scary cartoon you
and
would
it's
be
not the
afraid to watch
swerve.
as a kid.
When you're racing your bike, do you like a dangerous curve? You like to ride your skateboard in front of automobiles? The golden rule is you gotta be cool when you're riding on wheels.
I'm gonna have to go and check who worked on this, because I'm like, some of the Animaniac staff must have worked on it. This songwriting is tight.
You get hit by a car. You wanna run that light?
No, no.
Someone's tire squeals. What I'm talking about is you gotta watch out when you're riding on wheels.
You're flying down the sidewalk on your rollerblades skates. See that driveway? There's a car.
Oh, see, this guy has it right here. I was right. So all the musical numbers in this show were written by Randy Rogel. Yes, the same Randy Rogel that brought us Yakko's Nations of the World. That's so weird when you have an ear that just recognizes that. I don't know if it was just a lucky guess because of hearing like other Animaniacs voices, but man, that was a good call on my part. I'm kind of proud of that. I love when I get to do that. When it's like, wait a second, this sounds like something. Wait, I was right.
That's backing out. With all that rubber that you burn, did you signal for that turn?
And keep your bike inside the bike lane. Cause what's this all about? It's about your wheels.
About your wheels.
It's about you.
About you.
It's about inline skates and bikes and razors too.
Razors too.
It's about skateboards.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you're ready to roll,
Ready to roll.
you gotta have eyes alert and you always gotta have control. Cause you can do it right,
Do it right.
or you can do it wrong.
You could do it wrong.
Remember, fools ignore the rules when they don't last long.
They don't last long.
You ride it smart,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
then you're gonna have fun. Don't follow the rules.
I guess they're using like a Louisiana style
You keep your
jazz number to teach kids.
Don't go flying off the curb and always ride on the right side.
That's kind of slap though.
Before
you cross that intersection, look in each direction. Stay inside that crosswalk, keep it safe.
And I repeat, you gotta wear that helmet.
Gotta wear that helmet.
And don't go too fast.
Don't go too fast.
Obey that stop sign.
Watch the stop sign.
Wear a
You
can.
gotta wear
Alino
that.
Lau.
Make sure those drivers
This sounds low-key like Swing.
Well, swing is really heavily based on, like, Louisiana jazz stuff, so... There you go, right there. That's a signature Louisiana jazz. Zimbabwe baboo.
Security cameras in the city and found this.
We're bad enough to do this.
Hey, I know that guy. That's Rusty Ringtail. I ran into him on safety patrol a few years ago.
Oh my god, that polar bear looks obsessed.
Helmet and ride safe. He was already a real hard case back then. And later,
A real hard case.
I wish I could have gotten through to him. Help.
There's nothing we could do for him.
I hate to see any kid in trouble.
Hey, hold the phone. We better alert the police that Rusty's out there.
Aloy.
He could be up to something big and bad.
You're right. Let's call
Just
the
playing
police.
with my background
Rusty
side
used
here.
to hang out at an old junkyard on the wharf. I wonder if I could still get through to him.
Would you quit your belly aching? Hey, why can't we wear knee pads and, like, elbow pads, boss? Because, you sippering surf jockeys, all that dumb safety gear just slows us down. We need super speed, you hear me? Super speed. If I'm
Super
able to ride up
speed.
to the torch on the
Oh my god,
Statue
he's
of
like
Liberty,
Sonic Raccoon.
will be the shining finishing touch. to
You're
Rusty
too
Land,
slow.
my extreme riding park and cool new hideout. Boss. Yeah, Snarf. How are we gonna skateboard?
Is his name Narf? Really?
It's too small.
We would sadly crush it. I planned it small to match the size of your brains. That is so
Elino Lau.
nice.
Watch
Burn!
Sonic Says.
Do that just for us, boss.
Well, it's just because I admire you.
Watch Sonic Says, yeah.
It's just a model, you shredheads! The real Rusty Lad is going to be big, huge, gigando, just like the real Statue of Liberty. Okay, boss, but
How you gonna ride up to that torch?
it's, as you said, gigundo. Exactly why no one will suspect us. Now, my master plan uses all our riding skills to the max. We create chaos
To
around
the
wall
max.
side. Then we make our way over to the island. Snarf! This pile of bricks represents
Snarf.
the entryway at the base of the statue. This is gonna be your post.
This is like, you know, just blatant raccoon discrimination. You know, I feel like I gotta speak up for my Tanuki bros.
Snarf, all present and accounted for.
Raccoons
sir.
and Tanukis get a hard rap, you know.
Chili dog! This
He literally is Sonic!
Exactly 11:05.
He's gotta go fast. He
You get
wants
me to
chili
cause a minor
dogs.
distraction as the people
He's Sonic.
Distraction is what I do best.
What? Grrr.
All right, now, while you wheeled wonders are getting into position, I will be on the rear side of the statue. And while you two create a diversion, I'll work my way up to the crown on Miss Liberty's head, then I'll ride down Liberty's arm to the top of the torch. That's when you fellas leap into action. No one stops Rusty Ringtail.
Except
You know-
me.
I was gonna, you know, like, he's got a welder's permit. You'd think he'd know not to wear skates while he welds.
Still think it's cool to be bad as you can be, Rusty?
Cooler than being a danger loser any day.
Well, that worked out.
Rusty, I want to apologize
You what?
for not trying harder to get through to you.
Oh. Burble, you came all the way down here for me?
Well, you're worth it.
Wow. Well, no one's ever
Mess him up,
done that
raccoon.
before. Oh, It's so hard to do the right thing without someone showing you the way. I'll try harder.
Wait, is this turning into Yaoi?
All I want is a chance to become the most famous extreme skater of all time. Now, boys.
Huh? What's this?
Nani?
Now, let us go ride Miss Liberty's torch, fellas.
A Savo unit. Red alert! Come in, Danger Rangers. I'm trapped down at the dump.
Come on, Rangers. Burble's in trouble.
So they're safety guys, but they fly that low in a city area? Like, do they not care about hurting people? Wasn't there a whole thing recently about helicopters like flying low in DC?
You think you're in a pinch now, Danger Rangers? Just wait.
Compactor closing in at 50,000.
Man, a lot of people worked hard to animate this.
Not now, Bert. Engaging reverse thrusters. I can't break free. We're trapped.
Sully,
What is it, Bert?
I've installed a few new features in the hovercraft. This new super titanium drill should do the trick.
We Gurren Lagann now.
Elino Lau. That turtle is such a smart ass. I'm better than him.
Great save, but we gotta fly. Rusty's on his way to ride to the top of the torch on the Statue of Liberty. You can't see him do that. Who knows what trouble it could cause?
I do.
Red alert! The Ringtail gang is heading south toward the waterfront.
I'm on a kitty, and this time it's personal.
It's personal.
Pull over, Rusty. You can get really hurt riding without your safety gear.
And you could get real hurt even with yours.
It's a good point.
Whoa!
Not a ramp. That doesn't look safe. That looks dangerous.
Calling all Danger Rangers. Rusty and his crew have set up verts and ramps all over the city. These
So-
things look like fun, but they are definitely hazards. Proceed with extreme.
They just undermine their own point. It's like, they look fun.
Over and out.
There they are, Sully.
Okay, Kitty, let's shut him down. How do I look?
How do you look?
Yeah. Whoa!
Let's go, handsome. They're getting away.
Somehow I get the feeling there's Rule 34 of that cat, somehow.
Burble was sure right about their dangerous hazards.
If not, there will be now that I've said it.
Now they're making me mad.
Want to know how you look now?
How?
Mad.
After him.
What's it gonna
Elino
take
Lau.
to shake these guys?
Yo, watch
How
Rule
about a
34.
flame fur? A flame fur?
What's a flame for?
It's a flame for toasting Danger Rangers!
Fire!
Where'd they go?
There, heading for that ramp.
Hey, boss. This hazard feels...
Way hazardous!
Gotcha.
I want to give you one last chance to make.
So really, the
smart
moral of
choices,
the
Rusty.
story is, like, just anybody can build stuff in New York.
We lost Rusty.
Don't worry, son.
We just need better
I
building
like peanut
codes.
butter on jelly.
You can't stop me. I grew up on these streets.
I grew up on these streets too, Rusty, and I learned how dangerous they can be when you don't think about safety first.
Safety, safety, safety. Safety's for losers.
Jail is for losers.
Elino Lau.
This time.
Moral of the story: hobos are great builders and will someday rule the world.
Also, where does that jail is for losers line coming from? Is he, like, A police officer? That's not how water works.
Perfect. One getaway ramp coming up.
Hang on, Rusty. I'm coming. Sabo, call for medical backup. I've got Rusty in my sights, and he's headed for a big fall without any safety gear.
Whoa, physics. They make it look so easy when Mario does it. That moves, that moves.
You haven't heard the last from Rusty Ringtail. Well, Rusty, you've heard the last from us.
Yeah. And from now on, it's helmets and pads and no pain.
You did everything you could, Burble.
Yeah, Rusty just kept making bad choices, even when you gave him a second chance.
You're right. Maybe he'll learn his lesson someday.
Looks like we did a bang-up job on this case.
Yep, we kept Lady Liberty safe for everyone to enjoy another day.
Or did they?
The Danger Ranger's making the world a safer place to be for you and me.
Oh, yeah! Now that's a great theme song, Squeaky.
No, it isn't.
The Danger Ranger's riding safe and strong, waiting for the
Elino
call,
Lau.
making it safe for all.
When will you learn your
Chillin'
lesson,
slime,
Kyo?
stopping
You can't
crime.
force people to take your nudes.
I can and I do.
Guys? Guys? Where'd you go? Hey, guys, wait for me! Yeah. Oh, hey, what about a swing beat, huh? Danger Rangers in New York, New York! Yeah, baby! Danger Rangers to base. We're coming in for a landing, Gabriella. Over.
Copy that, Danger Rangers. Dock Bay 4 prepped and landing mags deployed.
Gabriella! Gabriella! Are they back? Are they back? It's time for the Danger Rangers to go to the safety clinic, and I would really like...
Not a good place for a nap, Fallbot. That's why it's important to always keep your sneakers tied.
Oh yeah, of course! I know that safety rule.
A Danger Ranger always knows. Tie up your laces in nice tight bows.
Nice tight...
Hey, Fallbot, are you okay?
Oh yeah, sure, Sully. I'm fine. You bet. Can't keep me down. No way. I just tripped because I didn't tie my shoelace.
Here.
Why does a robot have shoelaces?
Hey
What
guys, Fallbot just reminded
what cruel
me
man
about the safety
designed a
clinic.
robot that cannot tie his own shoelaces?
I almost forgot.
This violates every
You
known,
said I
like,
could help today, right,
ethical
Sully, right?
thing I know
You
of.
bet, Fallbot. Come on, guys, let's roll.
Father, why have you designed me with feet that do not function?
With that there.
Oh my god.
And it's a danger-proof plan to make sure the bike you're going to ride is the perfect size for you.
A bike that's too big or too small
Elino
will be
Lau.
hard to control.
Why would you want to see a robot's
So
feet?
have a grown-up help you do this test. When you're standing on the ground, you should have a 1 to 3 inch gap between you and the top bar.
You'll need even more room if you're riding a mountain bike.
Also, check to see if your bike seat is adjusted to the proper height.
When you're sitting on the seat with your foot on the pedal, your leg should be slightly bent. This will help you avoid knee strain.
Check the bike's chain to make sure it's clean and lubricated. And always make sure your tires
Lubricated.
are properly filled.
And check your
This
brakes
is
for
important,
even pressure.
everybody.
They should make your
There's
brake
gonna be a
wheels
test
skid
on this.
dry pavement. Now we're Danger Ranger ready.
Get out of my face, please. Mighty Kids
Riding on your
Media.
skateboard, thinking what a great board. I don't need a helmet or pants. Then you hit a bump, your head has got a lump, and the pain you're feeling hurts really bad. You're biking down the street and ahead at 50 feet says stop. You ignore the intersection.
I noticed that they reused that over on YouTube.
Hello.
Hi, Rare Cards.
Rare Cards. How's your day been?
Pretty quiet. I ordered a pizza, and that's about the busiest my day got today.
You're speeding down a hill, you fall and take a spill, you feel the bump, hear the honk, you're riding on your razor, shooting like a laser, passing everybody inside. You're knocking people off the sidewalk, thinking it's a wide walk, swerving to the left and the right. You're laughing, looking back, and then you hit a crack, and suddenly you're out of control.
Rare Cards. My day hasn't been so good, disappointed face.
Oh, sorry to hear.
You were speeding, you were having a ball. You didn't think it'd slip and you'd fall. But when your bike crashes into that wall, you're on the rules of the road. Obey the
Rare
rules
Cards.
of the road.
I found out my girlfriend was cheating on me with a jock.
I love the rules of the road. I want the rules of the road.
Sabo, this is Sully.
Elino Lau. Damn.
Well, there's one thing left you can do. You gotta find him when he's at the beach and kick sand into his
Right you are,
face.
buddy. Tell Gabriella we're ready for the award.
That's the only way to deal with the bully.
Here she comes now.
That and this thing I learned in this movie called The Count of Monte Cristo, but I don't think that's YouTube or advertiser friendly.
You get one too.
We hereby award you, Ballbot.
That's me, man. Yeah, I'm the man. You said I was the man.
I hate this character.
We hereby award you the Danger Rangers Safety Seal of Approval.
I award him a solid kick to the forehead. A boot to the head.
Rare Cards. It just sucks I can't really do anything about it.
Well, I don't mean to be mean or anything, but are you serious or are you just joking? Because I hear a lot of people joke about that kind of thing, so just making sure. Is this just like real or are we just having fun? Because I'll give real
Rare
advice.
Cards. But I hooked up with her sister, so. Elino Lau. It's for the
Sounds
best.
a little... Dude, this totally
Elino Lau.
happened, bro.
Now you can get someone better.
Well, if it's true, you know...
Rare Cards. It's kinda awkward when I go there.
There's a lot of reasons to be with someone, you
Rare
know?
Cards. Oh no, I'm not joking.
So just make sure, you know, if you're with someone that you're both being healthy towards each other and caring, and otherwise, you know, do whatever. If you know, lube whatever parts you gotta lube, hug whatever parts you gotta hug, kiss whatever parts you gotta kiss.
Elino Lau. I think both of you were just assholes.
And Lau laying it out.
Rare Cards. But I can't go there anymore. Rare Cards. Corona stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, I'm super jaded, so, like, when I hear people being normal online, it's like, oh yeah, like that happened. Like you had something that sounds that normal. It's like people dating. Pfft, normie. Get out of here
Rare
with
Cards.
your dating stuff.
LOL.
Normie. I don't know, I'm like a social recluse. So, well, I'm never really a social recluse. I just don't follow. I don't want to say, oh, I don't follow mainstream stuff like I'm some hipster, but like I genuinely don't. What do they call it? There's this movie and they have this great joke in it where it's like,
Elino Lau. I hate dating. People always end hurting each other. Rare Cards. Us. Rare Cards. Yeah.
Right, what was this movie?
Rare cards.
They have this
My
line like,
asterisk.
"This is the pulse. This is your finger on the pulse." And then he moves his hand to point to his own butt, and it's like, "And this is your finger far from the pulse, jammed straight up your asshole." And that's what I am. I just don't have any clue what that quote unquote pulse is. Let's see, what curse commercial were we on? I think this one? I think it was this one. We'll see. If I recognize it, we'll skip it. Unless you guys haven't seen it. Okay, I've seen this one, but
Little guy, all soft and sweet.
I don't
with
think
your
others
cute
have.
Little chocolate chips.
Yeah, I get it. I'm little. But they're not chips.
Oh.
They're mouth-watering peanut butter chocolate chunks. And I'm loaded with them. And if you knew just how delicious I am, you wouldn't be able to keep your hands up.
Hey.
New Ahoy Extras, the little cookie with a whole lot of
Hey,
extra.
what happened to him?
Like a ninja. Zabuza sword cannot
Didn't they have to censor the Zabuza sword in Germany? Like they couldn't show it?
Shark and shooter. Transform. Launch.
Rice paper target.
Victory is mine.
I love how disappointed Zabuza looks like, damn, I can't throw my sword. I just love... Look, Lisa, you can see the exact moment his heart breaks.
My ass is banned in France.
You can pinpoint the exact second his heart breaks. Man, this guy deserves an Oscar. You can genuinely see the hurt in his eyes over losing with his plastic sword to this man's childhood toy. He sells this commercial. This entire commercial pivots on the performance of the Zabuza guy. What a man. What a Chad. Why is your ass banned in France?
Victory is mine.
Isn't France like the place you can get away with everything?
You don't have time to lose. Nobody here has time to lose.
Waiting around is such a snooze.
I'm rapping to the beat. Just bang, bang your keyboard to the boogiest of beats. With Print and Go, you gotta know, you can renew tabs anytime. It's Express, S-O-S.
Waiting around is such a snooze. No time to lose.
Shop online, not in line, with ExpressSOS.com. Ouch!
And that's a wrap.
It's painless.
There's a mouth-watering new Gushers flavor.
And that kangaroo, though.
Huge!
Heavy, man.
Watermelon flavor bursting with watermelon juice inside. New Watermelon Blast Gushers. Whoa, what a melon!
Come on, who's your daddy?
You are.
Beat the villains, control them, and make them fight for you. Spider-Man, friend or foe, you won't believe who's on your side. Rated everyone 10 and up.
When I take on the insurance company, I ain't settling for no small dough. I'm hunting for the big bucks. I'm Mike Slocum, the Alabama Hammer. You've been hurt in a car wreck. Let me hunt down the big bucks for you. Call me right now.
Should we get a takeaway from Just Eat?
Oh, yeah.
What do you feel like? Chinese? Thai? Indian?
I see you, baby. Chicken madras. Chicken madras. Chicken madras. Whoa, you drive me crazy. Chicken madras. Chicken madras.
Chicken madras.
Oh, yeah.
Are you sure? That's quite hot.
Just Eat. I'll say. Tap the app and get that mini fist pump feeling.
Pai, esse é o Tony.
Boa noite. Sua vida não é light, mas o seu miojo é. Novo miojo light, agora com massa integral, menos calorias e uma delícia como todo miojo. Miojo light, light como a vida não é.
Go ahead and lick something. We lick you very much. If you want to lick something, lick us. We love to lick. We lick to love. We're love lickers. Little baby's ice cream. Ice cream is a feeling.
In a great big world.
The story of a pair of lungs that smoked as a teen and never grew to normal size.
Hey, little lungs. Want to snowboard with us?
Sounds great, count me in. Woohoo! I'm ready.
Yeah! Speed up!
My little lungs can't get enough air.
My little lungs.
Ow. Smoking as a teen can stunt your lungs, keeping them little forever.
Aw, poor little lungs.
In a great big world.
I like you very much. I've got pests, bees, buzzing rodents running all through my house. Ants chewing wood, and look, there's a mouse. I'm overrun with pests, but there's cat's eye. You're gonna be sure, safe and secure. It's the last.
Okay, I'm about to head out.
Everything I love dies. Magi Nation died. Custom Robo died. Golden Sun died. Why does everything I love die? I'm glad YouTube is a repository for content centered on dead media. Where would we be without a place to cry about our favorite mediocre intellectual property? On that note, Shaman King, a product of late 90s Shonen Jump and perhaps mildly inspired by JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The mangaka, Hiroyuki Takei, left his manga dead in the water multiple times and got the IP bumped from Jump. Well, not all the way, but it's a pretty complicated situation. This series is one foot in the spirit realm.
I kind of understand. Like, it's hard to be a series
I know.
creator.
Shaman King is best known in the West because of its incredible 4Kids dub. We don't talk about that. If you don't know, Shaman King's about people who talk to ghosts, make friends with ghosts, and try to use the power of their best friend Ghost to become the God King of the universe for the next 500 years. Most of these characters are 14. Now, Shaman King was relevant in that little gaming sweet spot between the end of the PS1 era to the end of the PS2 era. All kinds of titles were released in all kinds of genres, and while many never made it to the West, we got some pretty quality stuff. Okay, some stuff of variable quality. Let's check them out. I want to start strong, so hey, Shaman King Castlevania! Made by Konami and inspired by Aria of Sorrow, Shaman King Master of Spirits is demonstrably good. This ain't your classic low-budget anime fighter. All the Shaman King characters show up, you traverse levels full of obstacles and familiar enemies, and on theme with the series, collect spirits that you can equip to do special attacks or power you up passively. Even if you're not a fan, this is like the perfect starting point. It's got surprisingly pretty music and strong atmosphere for a Game Boy game. It's got memorable and intelligent enemy placements that ramp up so much by the end of the game. It's got crazy, brutal, balanced special moves that are all really unique and cool. Look at this giant laser! This character is 13. I thought I was just being nostalgic, but I've beaten this game 3 to 4 times now, and it's been great every time. But it's not just that the levels are so beautifully done and genuinely challenging, because the game honestly isn't easy. If you're not respecting it, you're gonna get wrecked. It's that it's the perfect intersection of content and fan service. Seriously, I know like 95% of you guys don't know what all the stuff on screen is, but it's such a crazy nostalgia trip and such an incredible feeling to see an almost dead franchise represented in a quality game at a quality price. That's so rare for anime games, dude. The boss battles are the best part, not because they're overly challenging, though some really are tough, but because they capture the characters so well. The early rival character is daunting and aggressive with all these giant moves that track you all over the screen. The kung fu guy flies across the stage and pummels you mercilessly. This little punk-ass kid tries to kill you with Big Ben. Absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. The series reminds me so much of why I thought anime was neat when I was younger. To me, it was this endless supply of strange alternative art and culture, this wellspring of interesting ideas that dared to be unique so much more than what Western media provided. Even if it's mostly based on Japanese cultural tropes, it just looks cool. And Konami doubled down with a sequel, Master of Spirits 2, which is just so good, dude. Like, I love how much content is in the first. I love the progression. I can sit down and beat it top to bottom in a sitting. The second is more of the first and then some. More spirits, more enemies, more levels, more bosses. There's all this extra content that doesn't even really matter, but it's in the game regardless, and they put in a boss fight mode. That was the one thing I wanted from the first. I would literally make saves outside of boss levels because I wanted to replay them. Just being able to go back and fight whoever with whatever, oh, it's such a fangasm. And they even put in Hao, you know, who didn't appear in the last game, even though he's the antagonist of the series, and his fight's super tough and cool. Oh, sorry, Zeke. That's Zeke. I know, man, I love this series, and you're thinking, why? It looks like a typical battle manga. Why do you care? 30-foot sword. Okay, the game I'm gonna show you isn't exactly good. Now, would you be mad at me if I said I bought this when I was 16, unironically? Shaman King is a Pokemon clone. For a series that's mostly about bonding with a single spirit partner and getting stronger, it's kind of crazy to make a monster tamer game where you capture ghosts in mortuary tablets, okay, and battle them and destroy their souls permanently by fusing them with others. Is that a fetish? Is that like Soul Vor? This Pokemon Blue and Red style game is aggressively bad because, for example,
worms are truly ancient lineages of animals, with evolutionary histories stretching back over hundreds of millions of years. Various worm groupings have been inhabiting our world since long before the time of dinosaurs, and the fact that they're still around today just shows how incredibly successful they've been. Now, as you'll know if you saw our What is a Worm video, the name worm isn't really a scientific title that denotes a specific grouping of organisms that all share a common ancestor. Instead, it refers to a type of body plan, essentially anything that looks, well, wormy. As such, when talking about the origin of worms, we could be alluding to any number of different groups of animals that are vaguely worm-like. In fact, you could probably count some of the members of the Ediacaran fauna as worms, such as the basal animal Dickinsonia, which sort of looks like a polychaete, the recently named Icaria, or bizarre denizens of the Burgess Shale, such as Hallucigenia, which is actually related to the velvet worms. But to avoid this video going on forever and all kinds of evolutionary confusion, we're going to stick to the origins of the three what could be considered main groupings of organisms we call worms today. The Annelids, which includes earthworms, bristleworms, leeches and others, the Nematodes, also called roundworms, and the Platyhelminthes, or flatworms. Plus, we'll take a quick look at the end at a few other worm groupings that have a particularly interesting fossil record. First though, the Annelids. The evolutionary history of this group of worms can be traced back over 500 million years ago, with ancient relatives being represented by fossils present in the famous Middle Cambrian Burgess Shale of Canada, about 508 million years old. These include the species Canadia spinosa and Burgessokita setigera, both of which are fairly confidently agreed to be prehistoric members of the grouping Polychaeta within Annelids. Though the actual classification of polychaetes is a bit of a nightmare, and it's likely that they're paraphyletic, or an unnatural evolutionary grouping. But anyway, there was also some debate amongst paleontologists as to whether the strange little Wiwaxia from the Burgess Shale and other locations was an annelid too, though more evidence seems to be mounting which suggests it's probably a mollusk. A very interesting insight into annelid origins was published in 2018, when another worm from the Burgess Shale was named and described, Kyonkochan, which was so exceptionally preserved that it even retained potential neural and vascular tissues, the first time this had happened in a fossil annelid. Even more significantly though, it enabled paleontologists to work out how the annelid's head evolved. The bristles running down the sides of the animal, called chetae, continue onto the head segment, suggesting that the head of annelids actually formed from posterior, more general segments of the body that over time specialized into this structure. An interesting perspective into the developmental biology of annelid worms. For a while, before the discovery of Kyonkochan, it was thought that Canadia and Burgess-Okita were the oldest annelid worms known to science. However, even older annelids were discovered during the intervening years. One probable annelid that pushed back the history of this group further was Phragmokita, named in 2008 and based on fossils from Lower Cambrian rocks in Greenland, about 518 million years old. The paleontologist describing it placed it as a polychaete and noted that it had around 20 segments, a straight gut, bristle structures they seemingly used to propel themselves along the seafloor, and no jaws. Possibly the oldest annelid currently known to science though is Ylingia, a recently described ancient bilaterian animal that dates to between 551 and 539 million years ago, during the Ediacaran. Fossils of this species come from South China, and traces of the trackways have also been discovered, showing that this was one of the earliest animals that was capable of moving by itself and also exhibiting decision making. Researchers can't be sure that this was definitely an annelid, however, suggesting that it's either related to the annelids or panarthropods. Nevertheless, there's no doubt that if Ylingia were alive today, we'd call it a worm, and it's amazing that this organism has had such significant implications for how we think about the history of life itself, as it hints that complex animals were around in the Ediacaran, and therefore the famous Cambrian explosion that occurred later may have been a less dramatic explosion of life than we thought. Anyway, according to a 2007 study, it wasn't until the Ordovician, about 480 million years ago, that the polychaete annelids started to properly diversify. It's during the early Ordovician that fossil annelid jaws start to appear in the record, and so it's probably around then that the annelid crown group originated. Oligochaetes, the group including terrestrial earthworms, then possibly originated sometime during the Mesozoic, though there is some evidence suggesting an earlier beginning, but this has been disputed. So there's actually a pretty fascinating history to these worms' early evolution, but as with most things in paleontology, many more fossils and studies will be needed before we can be more confident about how the annelids arose, and it's still an ongoing area of research. Right then, next we'll look at the nematodes. This worm lineage is another absolutely ancient group of organisms, and a truly fascinating phylum of animals. I could make an entire video on nematodes themselves. They're literally found everywhere, in pretty much every environment on Earth, including inside humans. It's been estimated that there are probably around 40,000 different species of nematodes, and they're actually one of the most numerically abundant type of animal on the planet. So prevalent that a 2019 study calculated there to be around 4.4 times 10 to the 20 nematodes in total across all topsoils on Earth. That's a lot of worms. So nematodes are clearly an important and ridiculously successful lineage of animals. But when did they originate? Well, since the majority of these worms are tiny, microscopic and soft-bodied creatures, though there are exceptions, such as the 13-meter long species that parasitizes the sperm whale, it makes finding fossils of them very difficult. However, there are some indications of their presence in deep time. Amazing fossils of nematodes have been found preserved in amber from the Cenozoic, but it's the more ancient fossils that provide better hints towards the group's initial evolution. Currently, the oldest known nematode body fossils are specimens from Scotland that date to the early Devonian, about 396 million years ago. They were found associated with a prehistoric land plant, with clusters of eggs, juveniles and adults all inhabiting the tissues of the plant, indicating a very old parasitic relationship between nematodes and plants that still occurs today. But this isn't the oldest evidence of nematodes in the fossil record, since in early Ordovician rocks from China that date to about 470 million years ago, there are tiny cylindrical burrows in prehistoric marine sediments that were most likely formed by these worms, increasing the oldest known age of nematodes by over 70 million years. And there's more. fossils have been found in the remarkable Chengjiang biota, dating to the early Cambrian around 518 million years ago, that represent members of the related Nematomorpha phylum, indicating that since these relatives have been around since the Cambrian, it's likely that nematodes themselves existed then too, and possibly lived even longer ago in the Precambrian as well. Indeed, George Poinar, an expert on nematodes, suspects that these animals potentially date back to as early as 1 billion years ago, and we just haven't found the fossils of them yet. So the nematodes also have a fascinating early evolutionary history represented by some pretty amazing fossils. Next, where did the Platyhelminthes, the tapeworms and flatworms, come from? One of the oldest records of these worms in the fossil record is found in a shark coprolite, fossilized feces, from the Permian. The specimen contains a total of 93 small, smooth structures that are interpreted by the paleontologists as being the eggs of a tapeworm. Remarkably, one of the eggs is even thought to preserve a developing larva inside it, and the morphology and pattern in which the eggs are deposited strongly indicates that they were laid by an ancient member of Cestoda, the grouping that includes modern tapeworms. So this discovery gives us some perspective as to the timeline of platyhelminth evolution. They seem to have been around at least 270 million years ago in the Permian. However, there is some more potential evidence for their existence before this time. Fossil hook structures found in much older Devonian rocks from Latvia might have originated from flatworms too. These fossils are mostly associated with or actually attached to prehistoric placoderm and acanthodian fishes, indicating a parasitic lifestyle. But the exact classification of what kind of parasitic organism can't be said for certain. The hooks do look like those found in cestodes. However, it's also possible that they came from a different phyla of parasitic worm, Acanthocephala. Like the nematodes, there are also some amazing fossil platyhelminthes that have been found preserved in Cenozoic amber, such as a 40 million year old specimen in the order Rhabdocela that retains developing eggs inside the body cavity. The Platyhelminthes are therefore another pretty ancient and fascinating lineage of worms, and I'm sure that future, probably even older examples of these flatworms will eventually be discovered that continue to elucidate the origin of these organisms. As we've already established, a lot of different animal groups are called worms, and these other lineages do sometimes have
to be clean, right? So they pitch it on the floor, and of course that spills the contents onto the floor, right? So now you got like alcohol over the floor of the bar. That's fine, right? That's how bars are sometimes. But the cats would walk in there, and because of this other thing we added to make like lava more realistic or whatever, the alcohol would actually get on their little feet, right? So the cats have this alcohol now soaked in on their little feet. And because of this other, so there was this whole other thing that I added back when stuff was getting, like, when you'd get, like, blood splattered on you during a fight or something. We had this problem where it would be, like, there's blood on your eyes or whatever, and there's blood. And so when people would go to, like, clean with soap, it was really weird because they'd be, like, soaping their eyeballs or whatever. And we're like, okay, so we just need to make eyelids work, right? So we go to the eyelid body part, and we're like, the eyelid just cleans, like, the eye, right? And at this time, of course, because of how the thing works modularly, like, well, we can make cats clean themselves because it's so cute, right? Like, oh, they're just licking their paws and so forth, and it's charming, right? And so we have these cats now that are in the bar with the alcohol soaked in their feet. Now they're licking them. They're like licking their paws. And of course, because we had just finished like ingested poisons not too long ago, right, they're now getting drunk, right? And this is the bug. The actual bug is just there was a numeric problem because I didn't expect this at all. And so they were like drinking a whole mug every time they would link their hand, like an actual mug for a poor cat. And the other calculations were all fine, so that just wasn't good for them. Their blood alcohol content shoots up to who knows what. Right. And they didn't make it, and we had like the 7 or 8, we just go on Wikipedia, right, and have like the 7 or 8 different symptoms of alcohol poisoning, and they eventually get to respiratory failure, and the cats respiratorily failed and keeled over in the bar, and that was the bug report. And
but like the punchline of the story is all these cats were getting drunk, but like on the way there, you made a system for cats to have fucking eyelids.
Yeah, yeah. Well, everybody's got eyelids. Yeah. I mean, everybody who has them. We actually had to go through the creature list and be like, who has eyelids, who doesn't. We're not that careful with that because we have like 500 creatures.
Wow. the mad lad who designed in-game islands.
Dwarf Fortress is one of the most interesting games ever made, but the reason we've been sitting on this
I tried to play it once and I couldn't get into it, but I love it as a story generator.
What the developer is talking about doesn't really work here. You see, Dwarf Fortress looks like this. To the average viewer, the action that's taking place here is incomprehensible. In fact, it's only after playing hours of the game and watching dozens of YouTube tutorials that I can decipher half of what's going on here.
I don't even see the code. All I see is blonde, brunette.
Pretty much.
But the ASCII graphics are part of the reason Dwarf Fortress is so interesting. You see, a lot of modern games are burdened by their fidelity. If, say, Madden wanted to add a feature where dogs could play football, they'd have to model the dogs and texture the dogs and change a bunch of AI and animations and add lots of barks. For Dwarf Fortress, features like this are modular. Tarn and his brother Zach just add it and then choose how it interacts with the rest of the system. And that's what they've been doing for about 17 years now.
I prefer
and such, they've
as a
created
game
this
and Dwarf Fortress as a
complex, bizarre,
storyteller.
interconnected simulation which is capable of producing some of the wildest emergent gameplay and narrative in all of video games. I played Dwarf Fortress here and there, but I mostly watch YouTube videos. In fact, to help illustrate some of how this game works, we've gotten permission to use some footage from my favourite Dwarf Fortress storyteller, Krug Smash. We've a link in the description to his channel, which you should absolutely check out and subscribe to. But like any good story, we have to go back to the start. So, how did Dwarf Fortress come to be?
Yeah, so my name is Tarn Adams, and I'm the co-founder of Bay 12 Games. And
You can have cat girls
a
in Cat
You can?
my brother's at.
DF cat
The
girls are
website's
more
been
like
up for
furries.
18 and a half years. Been working on Dwarf Fortress for 16 of those, the first few on and off, but steady for about 14. We'd always been working on a kind of fantasy role-playing simulation type game, even when I was like very, very young. I remember in elementary school we had a game called Drag Slay. So we hadn't really seen a kind of RPG fantasy type game that really indulged in the same
This
things
guy just
that,
like exudes
Civilization
chill.
was
He
doing
just
or
seems
whatever,
like a
where
guy
make
you
whole
could
map
chat
or
and
whatever.
hang
There
out
was the
with for
roguelike
hours.
games, which of course we were heavily into, where they make their own dungeons and so forth. But we just wanted to make the whole world. Why not make the whole world? So I created the Bay 12 website and like started giving away the game we were working on at the time for free. And at that time, it was like the 5th iteration of this Drag Slay game. It was called Slaves to Armok, God of Blood. This really terrible 3D game where we had changed our philosophy at that point. So like, oh, let's build from the bottom up. So we were like, okay, now we're constructing this 3D model of this person who can like walk on one hand or one foot if you set the stance variables that way. It's these really terrible animations, like terrible, don't wow too much here. And but it had like tissues and so forth. There were spells that would like strip the skin off of people or teleport people's noses over, and the little models would move and stuff. It was like a fun little playground, not much of a game at all, and it took us years to get that far because we didn't know what we were doing. But that was the game we were working on at the time, and so we had this other kind of side of games that we were doing, because that's just, it's a slog where you're adding features very slowly. And so I'm like, okay, side project 3 days, side project 3 days. And this is where things like World War I Medic, which is one of our games that's gotten like a small amount of press. There's Liberal Crime Squad, which is another game. That's an ASCII game, right? Text graphics or whatever. There are several of them, and that's what Dwarf Fortress was going to be, right? Dwarf Fortress was like, a few years in, we're like, I wanted to make a game kind of like Dig Dug or something. It was actually, there's this game called VGA Minor, which is, it's got like this cross section. You go down in an elevator and you dig and you get like just your minerals and you bring them back. And this is from like the 90s or something. There's a little bit of flooding, if I recollect. You're supposed to put dynamite under the outhouse to get your wedding ring out of there or something like that, which is the plot of the game, I guess. I vaguely remember. And so we're like, okay, let's make a game called Mutant Miner. You go down and dig just like that, except you find like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles mutagen canisters and you grow extra arms so you can mine faster. And now you have progression, right? Or whatever.
He meant Terraria.
So we're like, we need to make it real time, right? It's got to be real time in order to deal with these multiple things. So now you've got multiple little people running around digging and so forth. And this is still a side project. And then we had like this, okay, we're going to make it about dwarves. You dig. Dwarves always screw up and dig too deep, they die. They leave behind their little workshops and things, and we were gonna like generate diaries and things like that. And then you'd bring an adventurer in to go and find out, as many little things as they could about the game you had just played. And so the dwarf mode makes your maximum score, and then the adventurer you send in gets the realized portion of the maximum score. Tight little, almost arcade game, right? We're really excited about this idea, so we scoped it out 2 months. And, well, you see now that's gone. It just started, like, because it was a fantasy game, that was probably our mistake. It started to siphon
Why don't you play
the
Dwarf
features
Fortress?
from the main one, right?
Because I don't...
It's ASCII graphics, so
I
it's
can't
so much
understand
faster
it.
to put stuff in there.
Ellie
And
Noel.
as opposed to like this 3D.
It came
we
back
were
from
working
its
on.
hiatus
And,
recently.
yeah, so just every little idea that we. Yeah, so Dwarf Fortress is a colony management game. I mean it's kind of hard to explain to a theoretical person. It's like, do they know what SimCity is? Do they know what Tropico is? Do they know what these other kind of games that are vaguely like it are, right? But you
Cataclysm
basically
Den.
have a
It's
group
like
of
Dwarf
dwarves
Fortress, but
and
in a
they
day
mine in the
setting.
mountain. You don't control any specific dwarf, but you just kind of order
Yeah,
their,
I could try that. I don't
their
have it,
general
but
activities
I'll keep an eye out
and,
to buy it.
just make the best of things as trouble comes your way. Make sure that you have enough alcohol to drink, and make sure that you're farming mushrooms and making little golden goblets and so forth. But when it comes to like what makes the game more unique is that it actually takes place in a persistent world that the game will cook up for you each time. So you can run a world generation, which is sort of this historical procedure that runs out, some hundreds of years of history in a world map that's been cooked up just for you. And then you can play as many fortresses as you want, and the old ones will impact the new ones and so forth. You might have a dwarf from your old fortress come and migrate to your new fortress, and you'll recognize them. It'll be the same dwarfs, whether or not they're missing their pinky finger is intact. You can also play a single-player RPG, so you can visit your retired fortresses, talk to your old dwarves. I mean, it's not that great, right? We don't have like a script writer like writing like this whole story of your dwarves or whatever, but they'll talk to you about, what they've been doing and so forth. And over the years, it's become incredibly complicated and so forth, and that feeds into this whole notion that's at the center of the game, which is emergent narrative.
I actually
It's
find the game boring.
Idea that
Reading
you can
stories is fun
be
sometimes,
playing
but
a
it's
game
more of a
without a
once-in-a-lifetime
story,
thing.
but a story will
Lau.
still arise
It
as
was cool
you
the
follow
first time.
the different threads
Lau.
and pieces of information that are
sex.
presented to you, because your own mind is a story building engine, and we can help that by in our game design processes to encourage that kind of thing to happen. So it's really sort of a collaboration with the player to produce a bunch of stories, and you can just look up Dwarf Fortress stories as a Google search and you'll see what we mean.
Well, hello, you bearded bastards, and welcome back once again to Athlestzafon.
Come on, capture the window. Capture the window.
Elino Lau. I think RimWorld just defeated DF already.
Oh, why isn't this working?
Elino Lau. It's a more casual game, has better graphics, and you can torture people.
Oh, this should work. Oh, come on. Why doesn't it want to work? guess I'll just do this then. There we go. Okay. Now we can play EU4.
Kaido Destiny. Hi all. Vamos.
Hey, how's it going? England is no longer a great power. Ha 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 ha. Suck it, England. Mamluks? Oh no. Who else is shifting to Protestantism? Bloomberg? Saxe-Lauenburg, and it's Martian. Oh, and Utrecht, I guess.
Yuki Sadu. This kinda game is so difficult.
It seems like it at first, but it's not. I'm okay with it. But I'm gonna have no diplomat. He's not doing anything.
Elino Lao. I haven't played it, it looks way too complicated for me. Elino Lao. Look at how fast he clicks, that's a complicated game.
Well, oh man, I think I might have spent more time playing this than almost any other game, so I'm sort of experienced. But also, like, when you played it when it's rubber, you appreciate a lot more of the refinements to stuff. Oh, come on, Clevs. How come you don't want to declare war with me? I thought we were buddies. Where's my diplomatic reputation? Oh, I hope this doesn't go poorly for me. Go, my Frenchmen, destroy them all.
Yuki Sadu. Let's war with everybody.
Well, we are France, so that's quite a likely possibility. So, we're at war with the Papal State and Utrecht. Utrecht is here. I could probably send these guys.
Yuki Sadu. I want what are.
And you shall have wool, my friend. thought I gave him that. Oh. Hopi boy.
Elino Lau. I will drink from your skull.
Oh, that's not very nice. Oh, I'm kind-hearted.
Yuki Sadu. Ribs. Oh, good. Like, the hardest thing is kind of figuring out what not to do. Once you know what to avoid, it's not too bad. Yuki Sadu. I tried playing Civilization once and I got destroyed.
Oh. Which civilization? I might be able to help if it's a civilization I have. We could play together.
Yuki Sadu.
Oh, I don't have 6. Oh well.
Elino Lau. Last Civ I played was 4. Elino Lau. It took me 3 months to end a single game.
Looky Sadu. I'm just really not good at this kinda game.
Oh well. At least you
Looky Sadu.
tried. Some people don't even
But you
try,
look really
you know.
good at it.
Ooh, I get to have a reform. What should we pick? So we have administrative clergy, nobles of the robe, or meritocratic recruitment. Administrative free policies. Oh, that's good. That means I can have that. I'm gonna go with this one. This will pay off the most in the long run. It's hard to explain. Oh no, the natives attacked me. Sorry, natives. Pay off some of my loans. We lost the siege, but not the war. So I'm doing something that would be funny for people that know history. I'm switching France over to be Protestant. In this game, if you play as Protestant, you get a better tax bonus, and your relationship improves faster. So I'm going to be a big powerhouse Protestant nation next to the more Catholic German confederacies, and try and slowly chip away at some of the power base of a lot of Austria and the German states, so no one challenges my power in Europe. You know, hashtag just monarch things. Oh, I can't conquest all that. Need a little bit more. Okay. Aw, it's gonna be a slaughter. They keep sneaking in and getting these little
I'm just gonna take these right back while they just sit here doing nothing. Ooh, I can use new infantry now. Just hope that they don't... Okay. I win. Oh, I need Cambrai. Maine. The rain in Spain falls mainly in Maine. So yeah, we have France pretty much formed. Just pretty much historical France now. Oh, except for Cambrai and so yeah, almost there. Close to the last couple provinces I need. Who else has been Protestantizing? Ulm, Ravensburg. What are the republics? Oh, because they have nothing to lose. Birth of colonialism. Where does it pop up? Oh, in Portugal, okay. This music reminds me of like Inuyasha, strangely. Lorraine insulted us. Why, I never. I can't believe you've done this, Lorraine.
Baka Fairy. Hi.
Hey, Baka Fairy, how's it going? Vincent Stitmold denounces the Church of France. Should we banish him? Should we try him? Or this is unfortunate. Probably banishing him would be the safest. So let's see, either that or I can gain 10 prestige at the cost of... Yeah, I should probably banish him. You might say it's very Protestant. Ha ha ha.
Elino Lau. Yo Baka Fairy said hi.
Oh, sorry, didn't I say hi to you, Baka Fairy? I'm sorry.
Elino Lau. I think that's a pretty mean huh?
I'm sorry. Hi, Baka Fairy. Hi, how are you? How was your day? How are things? You eating okay?
Elino Lau. I'm afraid of him / her, so let's just surrender.
You're horrible.
Baka Fairy. No problem. Elino Lau. Baka Fairy, please don't hurt us.
The Age of Reformation. Ooh. From east to west, this is the age of religious conviction, debates, and mass movements. In Europe, Protestantism is entrenched, while millenarianism takes hold of Iran, and religious syncretism shapes Indian society.
Baka Fairy. I can't do anything today cause I had to wait for the deliveryman to come.
You had to wait for the delivery man to come? Oh, that sucks.
Elino Lau. The delivery man was doing parkour to get to your house. Elino Lau. Have to get that extra tip. Baka Fairy. LOL. Baka Fairy. I hope so. Viceris. Moplurk. Wakaperi. Cause I wanted to
Heresy.
stream as well, but I am afraid that the delivery man comes at the wrong timing. Wakaperi. So now I am on standby. Elino Lau. What you stream? Bye Cirrus. Just stream, and when someone rings your doorbell, throw up a BRB screen, mute your mic and get the stuff done, then continue.
Yeah, that works.
Bye Cirrus. At Bakaperi asterisk.
Oh, they set up shop right next to me. Bastards. We can't progress this battle any. Oh, there we go. Well, they might have set up shop, but they don't have any army there, so who knows how long it'll hold up.
Elino Lau. Kyonko moment.
Kyonko moment? I got your Kyonko moment right here, buddy. When the account of our time is written by
Actually, I also need to head out to get me some new gamepad controllers after that.
Leg bot key.
Battler Arisato. Hello there.
Hey, Battler Arisato, how you doing? How's things? How's the missus? How's the wife?
Battler Arisato. How's everything going, Kyonkochan?
Pretty good. Just playing this strategy game, EU4. Yeah, you get to take over the world.
Bakaferi. So I might do a stream on next Monday instead.
Oh, cool. What are you thinking of streaming, Baka Fairy?
Oh, and I was gonna say, I think some of your videos are posting twice or something. I was noticing, like, the same video pops up twice, so I don't know if you can fix that or do anything. Ooh, a self-sustaining colony. Very nice. So, what's like the development of this province? 9 acres. Wallon.
Battler or Risotto? Well, for me I'm fine, kinda worried since one of my uncles is in the hospital due to COVID-19.
Oh, sorry to hear. That's always rough.
Battler or Risotto? But yeah, I'm trying to not think too much about it. Battler or Risotto? Anyway, how's everything going there? You guys reached summer yet?
Summer, like, in Canada? Yeah, it's been summer for a while now.
I'm gonna go back to watching some stuff for a bit here.
About to be clean, right? So they pitch it on the floor, and of course that spills the contents onto the floor, right? So now you got like alcohol over the floor of the bar. That's fine, right? That's how bars are sometimes. But the cats would walk in there, and because of this other thing we added to make like lava
Battler
more
or
realistic
Rosetto.
or whatever, the
Too
alcohol
hot
would
there
actually
in
get
Canada?
You just kind of order
We're getting
their
a heat
general
wave tomorrow.
activities and just make the best of things as trouble comes your way. Make sure that you have enough alcohol to drink, and make sure that you're farming mushrooms and making little golden goblets and so forth. But when it comes to like what makes the game more unique is that it actually takes place in a persistent world that the game will cook up for you each time. So you can run a world generation, which is sort of this historical procedure that runs out, some hundreds of years of history in a world map that's been cooked up just for you. And then you can play as many fortresses as you want, and the old ones will impact the new ones and so forth. You might have a dwarf from your old fortress come and migrate to your new fortress, and you'll recognize them. It'll be the same dwarf, whether or not they're missing their pinky finger is intact. You can also play a single-player RPG, so you can visit your retired fortresses, talk to your old dwarves. I mean, it's not that great, right? We don't have like a script writer like writing like this whole story of your dwarves or whatever, but they'll talk to you about, what they've been doing and so forth. And over the years, it's become incredibly complicated and so forth, and that feeds into this whole notion that's at the center of the game, which is emergent narrative, right? It's the idea that you can be playing a game without a story, but a story will still arise as you follow the different threads and pieces of information that are presented to you, because your own mind is a story building engine, and we can help that by in our game design processes to encourage that kind of thing to happen. So it's really sort of a collaboration with the player to produce a bunch of stories, and you can just look up Dwarf Fortress stories as a Google search and you'll see what we mean.
Well, hello, you bearded bastards, and welcome back once again to Athlestifon, the Scorch Fountain. And as you can see, we have ourselves a little guest. A guest by the name of Kenam Sport Torches, the perfect growth. Or should I say, the corpse of Kenam Sport Torches.
Battler
the
or
Hydra,
Rosetto.
a giant
Any
dragon-like
game you're
monster
hyped
with
right now?
7 biting heads. And an interesting foe to be sure. Showed up just moments ago and is now just kind of wandering around the fortress. It caught sight of some capybara out here and is just chasing them around the hillside. That's absolutely fine, but we can't go outside for the time being. I have reason to believe this creature will be kind of dangerous. I mean, I guess that's probably pretty obvious. On the best of days, a Hydra is a powerful foe, but this one's undead, which makes it a lot more dangerous. Oftentimes, the easiest way to kill a foe is by destroying their head, but this one has 7 of them. However, if this was a living Hydra, we could potentially do enough damage to it to exhaust it, or possibly make it collapse in pain, and then eventually bleed out. But none of those are going to be factors in combating this foe. So I'm not too sure what our plan is. If the thing would just come to the fortress, that might make things a little bit more straightforward. But no, it seems to be perfectly fine just wandering around out here. Well, that's fine. Wander away, you bastard. And in the meantime, we can address our bustling fortress. Ah, Scorch Fountain. What a fine place for a dwarf to call home.
You seem to have built this just like this. It's like an emergent like house of cards. Like just so much data in this system.
House of Cards is such a
that
scary way to say it, though.
It implies it's all going to fall apart at any moment. Which may not
Any
be
moment now.
It's not untrue with, because I mean, that was a bug report we were talking about there, and there are issues all the time.
Any
But
game you're
it is a very
hyped
intricate
right
machine, and
now.
it can have, I mean, it's interconnections everywhere. It'd be more like if the House of Cards had little strings connecting all of the cards too.
I think the last game I really wanted to play was Outer Realms.
Because the strings hold it together, but also if you pull the wrong string too hard or something, you're gonna go.
Aside from that, I don't know of any
Recently, we
other.
allowed humans to move into your fortress.
No,
and,
there's nothing I'm too hyped for
they
right
can
now.
petition for residency
Not that's
based
coming
on,
to mind.
various criteria, and you can decide to let them join or not. But then the problem is, like, none of the clothes fit them. And so you have to, like, explicitly say, I want to make some human clothing for human-sized people. As you can imagine, that's fiddly, right? That's really fiddly. and just another burden that the Dwarf Fortress player has to assume, which is a problem, right? I mean, we really like to help people, but at the same time, we're adding more stuff, and then we're not helping people by doing so, and so forth. But it's more about just general modularity.
How about you, Battler? Any games you're hyped for?
Now we have this piece of their mind that's called their intrigue perspective, and it holds the different plots they have, the different actors in the plots, and so forth. And that's in their own mind, as opposed to being another way to do it would have been to make a global object outside of the minds of people and just have more of an objective scheme. And even if we're not doing much with it now, the fact that two different people can have two different ideas about what's going on is really important when you start thinking about partial information or deceiving people, that kind of thing. Lies are traditionally very hard to do in simulations because you have to track so much extra data about like who knows what and who believes what. But if it's something like a plot, there's not that many plotters, right? So you can keep the memory usage down and so forth.
Do modern games bore the shit out of you or something?
Well, I mean, it's like I still listen to music, you know. I play a lot of PS4 games and stuff, and I just don't play them for like the same reason that I play them. Like if I want to go hunt metal dinosaurs or whatever, I can go hunt metal dinosaurs and not worry about whether or not like their paint is chipped properly and that kind of thing, right? Yeah, no, people are allowed to have all kinds of varied interests and stuff, so it's cool.
That looks like it'd be fun to play too.
Alright, now then, anyways, our fortress. Here you can see a little entryway, pretty much all set up. We have a trade depot here, as well as a couple of protective.
It's hard to be hyped for much because I don't have anything.
The roof up top is
like I don't have a new
completed.
console, and my
then down in
PC
the actual
hardware is a
fortress, you
little
can see that the
old,
meeting hall is
so
all carved out. Although we don't have any tables or
a lot of
chairs
stuff I
to
see
play
coming
in.
out either
That's
I
because we've been
can't
working
play
in
it
bedrooms,
or
of which we
Being
have
honest,
20.
I'm not
and each
hyped
has
for
its
any
own
game
bed,
right now,
cabinet,
thinking phase.
coffer, and statue. There
Yeah,
are
I
two
guess
levels
it's not
of
just
them.
me.
And then over here to the right, you can see some looms and farmer workshops, storage for
I mean,
plants.
in general, a lot of
Underneath, we
games
have
I
some
like are like
stalls and
smaller,
kitchens.
like
And then right up top in this
I
clay
wasn't
layer
hyped
here,
for it,
you
but
can
I
see the farm
loved
plots
playing
and storage
Helltaker.
for seeds as well.
Helltaker
So
was
we're
like one of the
looking
best
pretty
experiences
good.
I've had
We
playing
have
a game in a
couple of
long
microwaves
time.
at this point, so we're up to 13 dwarves. So we're going to have to start making some more bedrooms before long.
Battler
I'm
or
sure.
Rosetto.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to
But
even
that's mostly
define
because
what
I don't
the
own a
community
PS4
is,
and
right? If
probably
someone
won't get a
watches
newer
Dwarf
console or
Fortress
PC
videos and
soon.
stuff, contributes on like the Patreon, because I have lots of people contributing that do not play. They
Oh,
just
I
love the
was happy
stories and
to.
stuff, and
there's a new
that's like
Terraria
they're part of the
update I need to
community,
check
right? I mean,
out
I joke
sometime. I
sometimes
keep
that the
meaning to
people that
play it,
watch
but
videos and listen to
Terraria is
people's
just one of those
stories and
games
so
I have to
forth
be in the right
are-
mood for.
Are the players, and the people
And
that are
it
actually
just hasn't,
playing are
like,
more
hit
like
me
the
lately.
QA department, right? Because they have to deal with so much crap.
Can you give us some examples of like how are ways that like fortresses tend to just collapse?
So yeah, you can. I mean,
I guess I could
a
stream it and
very
just have like an
common
open
way that
server.
fortresses
Anyone can
collapse is
join if they
flooding.
want.
Yeah, that
That's a good
section
idea.
of the fortress needs to be sealed off as quickly as possible, and occasionally there's a few dwarves that are just kind of stuck in there, and you build the memorials to them so that their ghosts don't haunt the fortress. And and then they're fine. You don't need to reclaim their bodies. It helps if you can find and bury them, but sometimes it's not possible. There are sieges and like monsters coming from outside,
Goblin.
dragons and so forth, and then from below the ground are the procedurally generated forgotten beasts. Those
Battler
are
or Rosetto.
not necessarily common
enjoy
ways fortresses
Terraria?
fall. If you're an experienced player, you have a lot of
probably.
tricks up your sleeve. If you're not, then sometimes that's it. You know,
I've
I
played
wasn't
it
expecting
a
the
fair
giant,
bit,
like,
so I
hippopotamus
burnt out a
to
little
destroy
on
the
it.
fortress.
So
Magma down
playing
below,
it now, I'd
demon
probably still
Battler or
enjoy it. How many
Rosetto.
hours do I have on it? I have to
Starvation.
check.
That sounds good.
Can kick in if you aren't watching out, and also in different versions there's a different amount of effect of a thing called a tantrum spiral.
I have 103
something
hours
goes
in
horribly wrong
Terraria,
for a
so
small number of dwarves, but they're all related to each
I
other.
swear
They're
I'm
all
slurring
friends.
that. The
People that know them get
Yeah,
disturbed
so
by
103
that.
hours in
And
any
then if
game
you
is going to
don't,
make
like,
it feel
give
a
them
little
nice
played through.
masterpiece dining
But I guess that's
rooms
not
and
even
feed
that
them
much
the
because
right
a lot
type
of people have
food or
played it for
whatever.
even longer.
The grumpiness will outweigh the happiness, and then if they start throwing fits and causing trouble,
But yeah, it'd be a good game to play because I think a lot of
and then
people
the whole
have
thing
it
just
and
kinda
may be able to
spirals out
join
of
in and
control.
play it. So
we're having a issue with no unhappy dwarves at all, And it turned out it's because when we added emotions to the game, we added like 120 different emotions to the game, and one of them was the euphoria you feel after you've been drinking. And we had a flag that was wrong on that, so after your first drink, you would be euphoric for the rest of your life.
Oh my god.
And so,
if only.
So they never had trouble again. So I fixed that, and then suddenly we're back
Euphoric
down in the
tipping hat
everyone's pissed
dwarfs.
off again. And we recently introduced the kind of short and long-term memory system to do like character arcs, so that you would like
short and long-term
remember
memory system, no big
strongest
deal.
things that have happened to you over like a year, and then it would save them to your long-term memories, and that also causes a personality change when it does it, so that we kind of get like actual character arcs for the dwarves. But there's been some issues with that too, because they have this kind of thing where they remember the long-term memory like cyclically when they're doing nothing. I mean, it'll occasionally pop into their mind, and if someone's had a crappy life, that sometimes overwhelms them, and they just remember these things, and they're just get more and more, and so it sets them on these arcs.
Dwarven
right?
PTSD.
People just aren't as resilient as regular people most of the
Post-tunneling
time.
stress
I mean,
disorder.
these dwarves are not as resilient as they should be.
I've seen things, laddie.
Tarn and Zach have been making this game for a die-hard community of players for almost 2 decades, but perhaps the craziest thing about all of this is that Dwarf Fortress is free. After a few years of people badgering them, they eventually put a donation button on their website and started getting support from their community. And in more recent years, they've developed a pretty healthy Patreon. But the reason for creating a commercial Steam version complete with actual sprites isn't just about making a quick buck. For Tarn and his brother, it's a lot more personal.
So yeah, so we had been giving away the game free for a very long time, and just recently, I mean, my brother's always had you know, he's on a medication that's expensive. This is kind of a typical U.S. problem or whatever, and that's
hurts,
been
man.
you know, for more than a decade or whatever. And then we
Just the way he says,
Badler or
typical
Rosetta.
U.S.
kind of
problem,
cancer
medical
scare
bills,
thing
like
so great but
that
so
ended up
difficult to get
costing,
into.
you know, a bit of money and so forth. And
that
my
hurts.
health
Like as a
insurance plan, we're
Canadian,
like,
knowing
if that had been me instead of my brother
why
at that
we
time,
have
then
medical
I'm
care
like,
here
that's just
because
my
of
plan
stuff
is
like
different
that.
from
Like,
his or whatever.
I feel bad
And
for
just the little
Americans
numbers and
sometimes
percentages
in
don't
that
add up
regards.
favorably or whatever, that kind of crap. So
Sucks, man.
we're just like, okay,
People's lives
it's
are
time
ruined by
to,
these medical bills.
you know, enter our 40s
And
a
then
little more
because
responsibly.
like they have this
But at
mentality
the-
of,
at the
oh
same
well,
time,
you know,
we
the
wanted to
government,
keep,
you know,
try and
medical
stay
companies
as close to what
or
we were doing
medical
as we
insurance
always have
companies
been. So
take
there's always gonna
bills,
be a free
so
version.
you know we might as well
Features
jack the
will always
price
be
up and make
updated
bank.
in line with the
So it doesn't
Steam
encourage
version.
a
The Steam
system of
version
like
has,
prices being good
graphics
for
and sound.
people,
There's no specific
either to the
date for the
consumer
Steam
or
release.
hospital. It
We're-
just makes
we're
everything
hoping
more
to get it
expensive in
together
the long run.
X number of months, and if
That's
X
my
is
hot
longer than
take.
12, then a year and months or whatever. It's game development.
You probably get asked this question all the time, but do you ever get sick?
I
of
know.
it?
I think it's
Or
bullshit that there's
just always
people who
everything?
can't get
No, I mean,
proper medical
like
treatment
I said,
anywhere in the
I was working
world.
on Dragslay when I was 10 years old.
There's
and
no
that's 30
reason.
years. I mean, I don't even know.
I know
what
it's
else I
ideal.
do.
Like I know we can't save everybody. I know we
because
can't get medicine
the
to
way
everybody.
the game is, there's
but
always something new
damn
to
it, we
work
should
on,
try.
right?
You know,
I was reading like
what more can you do in life but
Chinese
try
law
and you know
codes
get
from
medicine to people
1500
who are
years ago for
suffering
the
and
law update
miserable
that's coming
and
like 4 years
maybe
down the
make
line
the
or
world a
5
little
years down
better.
the line
I
or
don't know.
something. And you know, if I want to read about that, I can do that. If I want to read books about like occult magic
Well,
systems
at least
for the
I don't
magic
know.
release,
Anybody
I can read
watching,
about that. You can always
you know,
find
just be
a way
nice to your
put
neighbors
anything you're
and
interested in
you
into
know,
a video game just by
try and make
making
things
it into a
better
video
if you
game
can.
when you read about it or whatever. So it's
We can't change the world overnight,
it's
but
like if I'd have to be bored of everything.
man, I got on a tangent. I don't know. I just feel bad for that kind of medical thing. This is neat. This is an account of India.
India, which is in its shape
in
quadrilateral,
300
has
BC.
its eastern as well as its western side.
So this is like an
bounded by the
ancient
Great
Greek guy
Sea.
explaining
But on the
how
northern
he thinks
side
of India.
is divided by Mount Hemadoa, and that part of Scythia.
And this
which
would
is
be under
inhabited by those Scythians who are called the
Chandragupta
Sakai.
Maurya.
Badler or Rosetta.
So the Mauryan
Yeah,
Empire.
It's almost like a monopoly and the government doesn't do anything. Even here in Chile we have cheaper medical options.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like all these other countries, even Cuba. How does Cuba have a better medical system than America? That's just weird. But here I'll show you a picture. So this is the Maurya Empire. Okay, it's showing a good picture. So yeah, like this was almost like India before India in 250 BC. So the only part they didn't have was like this southern India. But otherwise, like look at that. That's
Battler or
huge.
Rosetto. All we can do is study, read and try to help the people who are close to us.
The rivers in the world after the Nile.
I mean, things are getting better
extent of the whole
generally.
country, from east to
Everything's
west,
getting better
is said to
slowly.
be
It's just
28,000
frustrating there's people who
stadia, and from
can't
north to south, 32,000.
be bothered
Being
to
thus of such a
care
vast
about
extent,
people or who
it
haven't.
seems well nigh to embrace the whole of the northern.
I hate when
tropic zone
when
of the
people
Earth. And in fact, at the extreme point of
are
India,
like
the sundial
it's almost
may
like they need to
frequently be
suffer
observed to cast no
in order to
shadow, while
understand
the constellation
why
of the Bear
things are
is by
important
night
sometimes.
invisible.
And it's like they
Consequently,
can't
with
relate
this,
to it if
it
they've
is
never
also
suffered
stated
before, if
that
they're like
shadows
rich, or
there
if they've never
fall
had to like
to the
struggle for a
southward.
job.
It is said that India, being of enormous size when taken as a whole, is peopled by races both numerous and diverse, of which not even one was originally of foreign descent, but all were evidently indigenous. And moreover, that India neither received a colony from abroad nor sent out a colony to any other nation. The legends further inform us that in primitive times the inhabitants subsisted on such fruits as the earth yielded spontaneously, as was the case with the Greeks, and that, in like manner as with them, the arts and other appliances which improve human life were gradually invented. The whole population of India is divided into 7 castes, of which the first is formed by the collective body of the philosophers, which in point of number is inferior to the other classes, but in point of dignity preeminent over all. For the philosophers, being exempted from all public duties, are neither the masters nor the servants of others. They are, however, engaged by private persons to offer the sacrifices due in lifetime and to celebrate the obsequies of the dead. For they are believed to be the most dear to the gods and to be the most conversant with matters pertaining to Hades. In requital of such services, they receive valuable gifts and privileges. To the people of India at large, they also render
Like you
great
say, Badler,
benefits
all we can do
when,
is study,
gathered
read, and
together
try and
at
help
the
the
beginning of
people
the
who are
year,
close to
they
us. Like,
forewarn the assembled
it gives me a
multitudes
lot of
about
hope to know
droughts and
people
wet weather,
think more
and
like
also
that
about
than
propitious winds and diseases
what's in it for
and
me.
other topics capable of profiting.
That's one of the things I love about the
The
whole streamer
philosopher who
community
errs in
and
his
meeting people on streams
incurs
and
no other
VTuber stuff
penalty
is
but silence.
just all the support and such a positive community and people, trying to support people just trying to make entertainment,
This video has been made
not
possible by the Great
trying to be
Courses
dramatic and
Plus,
stuff.
the
And I like
online
it too
learning
because it's
resource.
like people keep
The Great Courses Plus has been a long-time supporter of content from the History Brothers for a while now,
how would I say
and their
this?
excellent university-level courses are
There
something
hasn't
we
been
also
like any
turn to
major
when we need to
political
learn about
scandal
something.
or people
A
doing
great
really
recent example of this has been
weird
for
stuff
our
with
new channel,
VTubers so
The
far. It's
Entire
like a really
History
wholesome
of the
community.
Me and Pete needed to get up to speed.
Like
with the
even
latest
Project
science.
Melody, which is
So we
like,
turned to the
camera e-girl stuff, is
48-part
like,
course,
holy
The
crap,
Origin
is
and
Project Melody
Evolution
so
of Earth
wholesome. Like,
by Professor
you have
Robert
to be
M.
inhuman
Hazel,
to not
a
love Project
fascinating,
Melody.
in-depth
She
look
is
at
awesome.
the deep history of our incredible planet. So, with over 11,000
I
courses
know a
to
lot of
choose from,
streams are like, don't
you
talk
can
about
enjoy
people,
whenever
don't talk about
and
other
wherever
streamers or
you
people
want.
who have
It's a
more
great
views than
choice
you
to
or stuff
increase
like
your
that,
knowledge
but
about any given subject.
you guys
Head
can
over
talk
to
about Project Melody here all you want
thegreatcoursesplus.com/voices,
because she's
or
awesome.
Click the link in
And I
the
mean, it's not
description
like she's
to start
stealing
your free
views from me
trial
or anything.
now.
Like,
Thanks.
she's obviously out of my league in terms of what she does versus what I do. I play games and watch YouTube stuff. She plays game, watches YouTube stuff,
consists
and
of the
shows off her
husbandsmen,
nice
who
boobies.
appear to be far more numerous than the others. Being, moreover, exempted from the fighting and other public services, they devote the whole of their time to tillage, nor would an enemy coming upon a husbandman at work on his land do him any harm, for men of this class, being regarded as public benefactors, are protected from all injury. The land, thus remaining unravaged and producing heavy crops, supplies the inhabitants with all that is requisite to make life very enjoyable. The husbandmen themselves, with their wives and children, live in the country and entirely avoid going to town. They pay a land tribute to the king because all India is the property of the crown, and no private person is permitted to own land. The third caste consists of the shepherds, and in general of all herdsmen who neither settle in towns or in villages, but live in tents.
Battler or
By
Rosetto?
hunting and trapping, they
Yeah,
clear the
the
country of
community is
noxious
really
birds
positive.
and wild beasts.
I have met
As
new
they apply
VTubers
themselves
thanks to other
eagerly and
VTubers, and there
assiduously
doesn't
to this
seem to be
pursuit,
envy or
they
hate
free
between them.
India from the pests
Like,
with which it
obviously,
abounds,
as it
all sorts of
grows, it might
wild
get a little
beasts
more
and birds which devour the seeds
rivalry
sown
and
by the husbandman.
people starting stuff.
The fourth caste consists of the artisans. Of these, some are armourers, while others make the implements which husbandmen
But the worst I hear so far,
and everything is taken with
This
humor
class is
instead
not
of
only
making
exempted
drama.
from paying
yeah, like the
taxes,
worst I hear
but
so
even
far is
receives
most people
maintenance
who have
from the royal
lost like
exchequer.
VTuber stuff or been
fifth
scandalous
caste
were
is the
people
military.
who
It is well organised and equipped for
did
war,
something outside
holds
of their
the second
job
place in
that
point of
was
numbers,
like kind
and
of
gives
shady.
itself up to idleness.
So
and
either
amusement
like
in
one
times of
person was, I
peace.
think, trying to
The
sabotage
entire
another
force, men at
person's
arms, war horses, war elephants,
stream
and all are maintained at
or
the
something.
king's
I don't know. I
expense.
can't even remember names, but that just
The
shows how
sixth
like small it
caste
is. It's not like
consists of the overseers.
like
It is their
you think of
province to
YouTube and you
inquire
just think
into
of
and
like streamer
superintend all
drama,
that goes on in India,
just real life
and make
egos
report to the
overlapping,
king,
and
or,
it's like
where there is not a king,
I mean,
to
it's
the
really just
magistrates.
Hollywood.
The
YouTube is
seventh
Hollywood
caste
now.
consists of
I
the
mean, there's
councillors and assessors.
there's no denying that
It
it's
is
as
the
much a part of
smallest
Hollywood
caste looking
as
to number, but it
any
is the
other
most respected
aspect of
on
it.
account of the high character and wisdom of its members. For
And that
from their
includes
ranks,
like the way it
advisors of
operates,
king
the
are
way it
taken,
has
and
talent,
the treasurers of the state,
like,
and the arbiters who settle
look at most of the
disputes.
channels now
The
on
generals
YouTube
of
that
the
are
army
big. Like they're
also,
all
and the chief
Hollywood-backed
magistrates
sponsored
usually
channels. I
belong
don't
to
mean like
this class.
conspiracy. It's just that's how Hollywood is as an entertainment district.
Such then
Like
are
they
about the parts into
dominate and
which the
throw
body
money at
politic
stuff
in
like
India is
in
divided.
amounts that are hard to
No one
comprehend.
is allowed to marry out of his own caste, or to exercise any calling or art except his own. For instance, a soldier cannot become a husbandman, or an artisan a philosopher. Among the Indians, officers are appointed even for foreigners, whose duty is to see that no foreigner is wronged. Should any of them lose his health, they send physicians to attend him and take care of him otherwise, and if he dies, they bury him and deliver over such property as he leaves to his relatives. The judges also decide cases in which foreigners are concerned with the greatest care, and come down sharply on those who take unfair advantage of them. India has many huge mountains, which abound in fruit trees of every kind, and many vast plains of great fertility, more or less beautiful, but all alike intersected by a multitude of rivers. The greater part of the soil, moreover, is under irrigation, and consequently bears 2 crops in the course of the year. It teems at the same time with animals of all sorts, beasts of the field and fowls of the air, of all different degrees of strength and size. There are monkeys, rollers of rocks, which climb precipices, whence they roll down stones upon
One of the
their
things that's
pursuers.
really nice about being a
It is
VTuber
also
too is
said
like
that there exists in India
it's a lot harder for
one-horned
people to
animal,
squash you
called by the natives the
since they can't
Katazon. It is
figure
of the
out as
size
much of
a
your real life
full-grown
info.
horse, and has a crest and
So
yellow
you're a little
hair,
more
soft as
sheltered,
wool.
safe
It
that
is
way.
furnished with very good legs and is very fleet. Its legs are jointless and formed like those of the elephant, and it has a tail like a swine's.
I wouldn't mind getting to be
A
known as like
horn
the history
sprouts out
VTuber.
from
People
between
can
its
just come here
eyebrows,
and like
and this is not straight,
chill
but
as I watch
curved
these
into the most natural wreaths,
funny
and
history
is of a black
videos.
colour. It is said to be extremely sharp, this
Battler
horn.
or Rosetto?
The animal, as I learned,
Yeah,
has a
YouTube
voice
is
beyond
full of
all
people
example,
who want to create
loud,
drama
ringing,
from
and
nothing. This
dissonant.
YouTuber said
It
this.
allows other animals
This
to approach
YouTuber
it,
has this
and is
political views.
good-natured towards
This
them.
YouTuber was seen
It is
doing
prolific,
this.
besides, in
Battler or
elephants,
Rosetto?
which are of monstrous
Sometimes
bulk,
it doesn't
as its
feel
soil
like a community
supplies
at all.
food in unsparing profusion, making these animals far exceeding in strength than those that are bred in Libya. It results also that since they are caught in great numbers by the Indians and trained for war, they are of great moment in turning the scale of victory. The inhabitants, in like manner, having abundant means of subsistence, exceed in consequence the ordinary stature, and are distinguished by their proud bearing. They are also found to be well skilled in the arts, as might be expected of men who inhale a pure air and drink the very finest water.
It's kind of appropriate. We're watching a video about like the Indian caste system, talking about YouTubers who are like
and while the soil bears
lord
well
over other
some kinds of
YouTubers.
fruits which
I
are
can't
known
believe
to
YouTuber said
cultivation,
mean thing.
it has also
He would never say mean thing.
numerous veins of all sorts
Ellie
of
no
metals, for it contains
He
much
only
gold
says good
and
thing.
silver and copper and iron in no small quantity, and even tin and other metals which are employed in making articles of use and ornament, as well as the implements and accoutrements of war. The Indians all live frugally, especially when in camp. They dislike a great undisciplined multitude, and consequently they observe good order. Theft is of a very rare occurrence. Megasthenes says that those who were in the camp of Sandracotus, wherein lay 400,000 men, found that the thefts reported on any one day did not exceed the value of 200 drachmae, and this among a people who have no written laws, but are ignorant of writing, and must therefore in all business of life trust to memory. They live nevertheless happily enough, being simple in their manners and
I just had to laugh because it's like,
they never drink
wait,
wine
hold up.
except at
Is this ancient
sacrifices.
Greek historian
Their beverage is
Lovekey?
liquor composed from
Lovekey
rice
talking about
instead of barley,
defunding the
and their
police.
food is principally a rice pottage. The simplicity of their laws and their contracts is proved by the fact that they seldom go to law. They have no suits about pledges or deposits, nor do they require either seals or witnesses, but make their deposits and confide in each other. Their houses and property they generally leave unguarded. These things indicate that they possess good, sober sense, but other things they do which one cannot approve. For instance, they always eat alone, and that they have no fixed hours when meals are to be taken by all in common, but each one eats when he feels inclined. The contrary custom would be better for the ends of social and civil life. Their favourite mode of exercising the body is by friction. Applied
That's
in
such a
various
weird thing
ways,
for him
but
to be upset
especially
about. They
by
eat
passing
alone
smooth
and they
ebony
eat when they're
rollers over the
hungry.
skin. Their tombs are plain, and the mounds raised over the dead lowly. In contrast to the general simplicity of their style, they love finery and ornament. Their robes are worked in gold and ornamented with precious stones, and they wear also flowered garments made of the finest muslin. Attendants walking behind hold up umbrellas over them, for they have a high regard for beauty and avail themselves of every device to improve their looks. Truth and virtue they hold alike in esteem, hence they accord no special privileges to the old, unless they possess superior wisdom. They marry many wives, whom they buy from their parents, giving in exchange a yoke of oxen. Some they marry hoping to find in them willing helpmates, and others for pleasure and to fill their houses with children. The wives prostitute themselves unless they are compelled to be chaste. No one wears a crown at a sacrifice or libation, and they do not stab the victim, but strangle it, so that nothing is mutilated, but only what is entire may be presented to the deity. The king departs for the chase in bacchanalian fashion. Crowds of women surround him, and outside this circle,
Man,
spin
ancient
and
India
arrange.
sounds pretty boss,
The road
not
is
gonna
marked
lie.
off with ropes, and it is death for man and woman alike to pass within the ropes. Men with drums and gongs lead the procession. The king hunts in the enclosures and shoots arrows from a platform. At his side stand 2 or 3 armed women. If he hunts in the open grounds, he shoots from the back of an elephant. Of the women, some are in chariots, some are on horses, and some even on elephants, and they are equipped with weapons of every kind.
Sounds like
if they
Hell's
are going on a
Grannies, but the
campaign.
chariot version in India.
These customs are very strange when compared with
These
our own.
Indian
Following
warlordesses
still
just
more
roll up on
so.
you.
Megasthenes states that the tribes inhabiting the Caucasus have intercourse with women in public and eat the bodies of their relatives. But, deviating into fables, he says there are men 5 spans and even 3 spans in height, some of whom want the nose, having only 2 orifices above the mouth through which they breathe. According to Megasthenes, on a mountain called Nulo, there live men whose feet are turned backward and who have 8 toes on each foot, while on many of the mountains there lives a race of men having heads like those of dogs, who are clothed with the skin of wild beasts, whose speech is barking, and who, being armed with claws, live by hunting and fowling.
Low-key ancient Indian
He speaks
furries.
also of a race living on the very confines of India, on the east, near the source of the Ganges, the Estomi, who have no mouth, who cover the body, which is all over hairy,
Was this
with
India?
soft down found upon the leaves of trees, and who live merely by breathing
Wow.
and the perfume
This looks like
inhaled by their
America.
nostrils. They eat nothing, and they drink nothing. They require merely a variety of odours, of roots and flowers, and of wild apples.
Ooh, get ready. This one's fun. A 14-barrel flintlock
Hi guys,
rifle.
Thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I'm here today at the Musée des Armes, part of the Grand Curtius Museum complex in Liège.
Look at that
Belgium.
thing.
And we are taking a look at what is possibly one of the coolest guns in their entire collection. This is...
I'm pretty sure
not
I saw
a
someone
single
graph
barrel
that to their
flintlock,
arm in Final
double
Fantasy
barrel
VII.
flintlock, although it does have two actions. It's not a 7-barrel flintlock like a knock volley gun. This is in fact a 14-barrel double knock volley gun style of, well, rifle actually. 14 heptagonally rifled barrels in 2 clusters of 7 each cluster fired by a single trigger and a single flintlock mechanism. So this is ye old firepower. Let me show you up close. So this is
That's
very
quite a
impressive gun,
boomstick.
both for its technical features, the fact that it is a 14-barreled flintlock, which is just ludicrous to even say. And
Oh my
for the
gosh, that
workmanship
handle.
went into it, because everything on this gun is just beautifully made. So let's start with the lock plate. We have a bunch of gold damascene on the gun, including a little bit here on the lock plate. And if you can read that, it's pretty tiny. It says Dupe and Company. This was a London gunmaker who manufactured this piece sometime around 1800. Now the story gets really interesting when we look at the top of the gun, because at the back end here, we have some beautiful gold damascene inlay, little hunting scene there. But then we have some marking. This is also gold damascened in, but it says, "With this alone, I'll defend Robro Camp, 1795. Well, we know who owned this gun because he wrote a book in the early 1800s in which he described this gun. It was a Colonel Thomas Thornton, and he was in charge of a regiment of militia. And in 1795, they mutinied at a place called Robro, which was actually spelled R-O-B-R-O-U-G-H, Robro Camp. And apparently this affected him quite deeply. And later on, a few years later, he would have this gun made, theoretically, presumably as a sporting arm, but he's also got down here perdition to conspirators, which tells me he wasn't over that mutiny. And harbored some harsh feelings.
He was so salty over a mutiny, he designed a gun
against his command.
for like a,
but all of this is just
a revenge
really
fantasy.
Inlaid there. I do not know what the significance of Glenmore Forest is, or the date of 1793, but we have yet more gold damascene down here on the muzzle end, along with 3 sights. Now, the middle sight is the one you would actually use. We'll get to these other 2 in a moment. We have a front middle sight there, and then you have a middle rear sight back on the central partition. This is really actually a lighter gun than you might expect. I think it can't be much heavier than a standard knock volley gun, despite having twice as many barrels, in part because the barrels are much smaller. These are 7.5 millimeter in diameter barrels, or approximately 30 caliber, and they are all rifled.
This is like a
This is like a Whitworth.
Doom guy would be
It's
proud.
like an 1800s shotgun.
The inside of the barrel is actually 7-sided, so not hexagonal, not octagonal, but
It is. It basically is the super shotgun.
Doom becomes human.
This is the first time I've run into something that is that way. So the nice thing about this is you don't have to actually engrave lands and grooves into the bullet when you load, but you do conform the bullet, or you, in fact, would probably cast a 7-sided geometric shaped bullet,
Wow.
kind of like a Whitworth hexagonal bullet. In order to better handle the weight of all 14 of those barrels, this has a vertical front grip on it, which is reasonably comfortable to use. It's at the right point. This nicely.
This has to be modeled into a game.
The trigger guard is also nicely engraved.
If anyone ever comes across something in a game that's like this, let me know.
Action. There's our other lock plate.
Or did Saints Row 3 have
And
a
then the
shotgun that
stock
was kind of
is
like
quite
this, I
thick
think?
and heavy, which you would want for the amount of recoil that this thing is going to generate, with a nice, somewhat engraved butt plate and really nice
butt
check rate.
plate.
You might wonder just how much of a pain it would be to load 14 barrels like that. Well, they had a solution for you. Thornton had a loading tool made. So this is kind of like a typical powder throw, except it has 7 powder chambers side by side. So you would fill this whole thing up. You can then use this cover plate to seal them up and scrape off any excess powder.
Andy_Kufin.
And then you
Caco
slide
noises
this side
intensify.
over, and that aligns these loading tubes with your powder charges there. And then you can, well, what you do is close it, put it over your 7 barrels, and then slide it like that to open it. And that allows you to charge all 7 barrels.
I love
at
this
the
stuff
same time,
before like
which
modern
would be really
guns.
important. It means you're not going to
And now
lose
they try and figure out how
track
to
of
have
which one
as
you
much
put
DACA
powder
as
in and which
possible.
one you haven't. Of course, then you have to seat all 7 projectiles at random, and then you do the whole procedure again for the second set of barrels.
We needs more DACA on
One
this,
set of barrels.
but only the
The other
1800s.
accessory
As we
that the Legion
supposed to
Museum has
DACA.
for this gun is a second stock.
I'll
The
show you
second
how to
stock
DACA.
only holds 1
You see,
set of barrels.
more barrels
Now, this
means
was
more
made separately,
DACA,
and
boys.
it was
It's just
probably
that
made in
simple.
France. It's obviously of a different style. It has some really elaborate wood engraving in it. We have this eagle on the bottom of the grip with a pigeon or other small prey bird in its talons. That's kind of cool. And then we have an engraved lion's head on the top of the stock, along with a motto in French, which is Verita, Verite Gagne, which means something to the effect of truth in victory. Gagner is to win, or gagner is to win, and verite is truth. So, but it's a French language motto up there, which
Truth
suggests, of course,
winning.
that this was made in France. Colonel Thornton was apparently quite a francophile.
Elino Lau.
He actually moved to
I
France
think there's
later
some
in
modern
life,
show
but
tapes
the
which
book
are
that he
basically
published
an
in which
ass
he
shot with a
described this
revolver
gun,
cylinder that holds
was
shells.
about a sporting trip through France.
Andy_Kufin.
So the way
Still
this
haven't
would
seen a
work
quad
is you have
barrel
your spare
shotgun.
stock.
But to be fair, who would be able to even use that?
Well,
And you would mount 1 set of barrels in here, screw the lock plate onto the side, and presto, you have now cut the weight in half, and you have a 7-barreled volley gun at your disposal. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is a pretty phenomenal sort of firearm to take a look at. I've never seen anything quite like this. Between the sheer ludicrous number of barrels and the gold engraving and the workmanship that went into this, not even to mention the fact that it was reconfigurable into a single,
Lau.
only 7-barrel
Yeah,
carbine.
a revolver show
An
tape.
extremely interesting and cool piece of firearms history. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Big thanks to the Liège Arms Museum. Did you know that Napoleon Museum?
wait, did I know that?
Did you know that Napoleon turned down the opportunity to buy cartridge loading firearms?
Elino Lau. I think Demo Ranch
Museum
made a
for giving
quad
me
shotgun.
access to this,
Today, most houses are filled with televisions and devices that have access to all sorts of platforms that produce and stream a mind-numbing amount of content, including the content you're watching today on YouTube. And most of that content
Whoa,
today
he's
is
talking to us,
produced digitally,
bro.
and it comes into our house through cables or through the internet. But for a long time, most television was broadcast via an antenna, picked up via the airwaves. And inventors like Philo T. Farnsworth and Vladimir Zworykin had developed the technology to be able to do that in the 1920s, but television...
Oh, shoot, sorry.
Television didn't become popular and wasn't common in households until after the Second World War. But that doesn't mean that nothing happened in between. The big networks that we recognize today, ABC, NBC, and CBS, all formed as radio networks during that period. But one of the lesser-known stories of early broadcast television started in 1926 when a Cadillac dealer bought his first radio station. He had a license to broadcast
Elino
television
Lau.
in
Kyo
1931,
watch period
nearly a
of
decade
Platyhelminthes.
ahead of the Big Three. It's history that deserves
Elino Lau.
to be remembered.
Kyo, have you
Don
seen
Lee was
period?
born in Michigan and made his money by acquiring the exclusive distribution rights for Cadillac cars in California. He used his large personal fortune to purchase the radio station KFRC in San Francisco in 1926, and a year later,
There's a platypus
KHJ
controlling
in
me.
Los Angeles.
There's a
Lee
platypus
expanded his
controlling
radio
me.
network across the coast, acquiring
My
stations
teacher
in
is a
Oregon,
platypus. The
Washington.
system is a
A few
platypus. The
years
government's
later,
a
the Columbia
platypus.
Broadcasting System, or
Oh, I get it. A
CBS, extended
platypus is
facilities
like
to
a
the coast
metaphor
and
for
extended
something
an
keeping you
invitation
down.
to Lee's network to broadcast Columbia programming. By 1931, Lee had turned KHJ into the broadcasting hub for his first television station, which broadcast under the call sign W6XS and a sister station W6XAO. He wasn't the very first to start producing television content in America, but the Big Three didn't start broadcasting television until the eve of the Second World War. He appointed a young engineer named Harry Lovekey to run his experimental
Harry
station.
Lovekey.
Lovekey became the director of television for the Don Lee Broadcasting
Hey,
System.
Harry Lovekey, what's
One
on
of
the
problems
box
with the
tonight?
television broadcasting
I'll get
network
back
in
to you
1931 was that no one
after
owned a
I
television.
get my
It was
groove on.
something of a catch-22. No one would buy a television unless there was something to watch on them, but it was difficult for anyone to produce content when there wasn't anyone to watch. To mitigate this issue, Lovekey distributed plans to amateur tinkerers in LA for construction of mechanical receiving sets. In 1939, it was estimated that something like 100 people built televisions using Lovekey's plans. The station became one of the first to offer regularly scheduled
I think
programming on
didn't
the
television
West Coast
like
when they
first
started
really take off
broadcasting
in
1 hour
Mexico
every
before it
day
took off in
except
America?
Sundays. The content was mostly, quote, filmed action and close-ups of movie stars and was broadcast between 6 and 7 in the evening. And they were one of very few stations to continue broadcasting throughout the war. It's largely due to Harry Lovekey that the early network was able to transcend from just being an early television network to one that made a mark in television history. Though he would die almost completely unknown, Lovekey was a talented engineer and pioneered many television innovations. Like many inventors of the time, Lovekey did his own tinkering with the television set. In 1929, he was working with Farnsworth in San Francisco to produce an all-electronic scanning generator system, which was probably one of the more important items in the unprecedented settlement between Farnsworth and RCA in September 1939. RCA purchased a number of Lovekey's patents regarding synchronization in 1938. Lovekey continued to do work on synchronization, electronic television, and the self-synchronized cathode ray tube. Though many of these patents have become forgotten, the value of his self-synchronizing cathode ray tube was likely the most important. In 1932, Lovekey demonstrated television reception on an airplane, largely thanks to his advances in synchronization. According to the Spokane Daily Chronicle on May 23, 1932, Lovekey planned to transmit a picture to an airplane cruising about 5 miles away at an altitude
So he's the
of
bastard
approximately
we can
6,000
blame
feet.
for in-flight
The
movies.
test successfully transmitted a picture of a girl onto the plane from W6XAO. His work led Don Lee to make Lovekey the face of West Coast television and of W6XAO.
Okay, we have to low-key go back in time to that moment in time and change that picture to like an anime
They
waifu.
broadcast possibly the earliest television news coverage when they telecast news footage of a Long Beach earthquake to LA only a few hours after the event. The station
Wow.
managed to add another first on the very same day when it became the first to broadcast a motion picture, The Crooked Circle, which it broadcast on March 10, 1933. It's believed that the movie was seen by perhaps 5 LA area television receivers. The LA Times Sunday Magazine said in 1936 that W6XAO was the only station that releases regular television broadcasts and one of 4 centers in the U.S. where serious scientific work on television was being done. But there were big changes on the horizon. In 1934, Don Lee passed away from a heart attack and left his Cadillac business and his broadcasting system to his son, Thomas Lee. The quality of the product that they were producing was increasing over the period. For analog television, the quality of the resolution, how good your picture is, depends upon the number of lines that are broadcast. And in 1936, they moved from broadcasting in 80 lines to 300 lines, or a great improvement in the picture resolution. And that was up again to 441 lines in 1938, and 30 frames per second, which was on par with the RCA system.
So that's basically
By
480p.
the outset of the war, they were broadcasting 525 lines. Around 1940, Lee moved the station from 7th and Bixel in LA to a new location behind the famous Hollywood sign on top of the hill that is now called Mount Lee. Lovekey called it the first structure in the world erected exclusively for telecasting. In 1938, W6XAO broadcast the first American television soap opera when it began airing Vine Street, a 15-minute serial aired twice a week about the difficulties of making it big in Tinseltown. By the next year, 4 of 6 nights a week were aired with live talent produced in-house. On January 1st, 1940, the station became the first on the West Coast to transmit a remote broadcast.
Maybe that's
when
what
they
we need to
broadcast
do
the
on
Tournament
Twitch,
of
is have a
Roses
soap
parade.
opera.
In 1940, Lovekey said that the Lee station was focusing on developing variety shows, and that the longest play they had run so far was a 40-minute presentation of Hamlet. By 1940, several different kinds of television were on sale commercially from companies like GE and RCA, and there were hundreds of sets in LA to watch the 10.5 hours a week the station broadcast. Most of their time was occupied by films, but they also covered newsreels and their own programming. The broadcast could be picked up at least 22 miles away in Long Beach, where one watcher said he had as many as 30 visitors in one evening to watch. In 1941, W6XAO operated 590 hours and broadcast
Back in the day,
67
you just
remote
invite
programs.
anybody
But despite all
in to
their
watch
innovative
TV.
television first, it wouldn't be a surprise if
Hey
you've
there,
never heard
folks.
of
You
the
want to come in and
Don
watch
Lee
the old
Broadcasting
TV
Network,
with me?
because while they were busy being pioneers of early television, they were also setting the stage for their own decline. The network wanted to remain an independent network at the time when the larger networks were growing. The network was mostly made up of radio stations across California and in Portland, Seattle, Tacoma, and Spokane. The network's relationship with Columbia fell apart shortly after Don Lee's death in 1934. Friction had been growing between the networks as CBS began demanding more control over its affiliates, especially over programming. In 1936, CBS bought KNX in LA and another in San Francisco to replace the need for the Lee network. Fortunately for Tommy Lee, at the same time that CBS was ridding itself of the Lee network, the Mutual Broadcasting System
This
was
is
looking
kind
to
of like
expand to the West
related to
Coast.
anybody that streams
The
on
switch was
Twitch.
scheduled for
Like
December
this is
29th,
the origin
1936,
of broadcasting.
the same day that the CBS contract ended. Even
These are
under
the
the new
guys
contract, the Lee
who,
network
you know,
maintained a peculiar independence.
if it
Technically
weren't for
speaking,
them, we
Mutual
wouldn't be
had only
doing
a
what
single
we're doing
affiliate west
today.
of the Rockies, the Don Lee network itself. Mutual had no relationship with the individual stations and provided the network with mutual programs that could then be passed on. But in 1938, only 16 to 20% of the commercial programs on
Look
the
at the
radio
lips on
stations
that guy.
originated with
Holy.
Mutual. Most of them were still produced by the Lees themselves. What the Lees really wanted was to have an independent regional network that could leverage the resources of a national network, and that worked for the Mutual Broadcasting System, which had a vision of national reach but local flavor. But unfortunately, that couldn't last. After the end of the war, the consolidation of stations and the growth of the big three would doom a small regional network.
Oh, by the way,
Tommy Lee
Anime
had inherited
Sensei,
a $9 million fortune from his father,
ITCT,
consisting
I
of
don't
the
think I've
network
seen
and
you in the
his
stream
father's car
before,
dealerships.
so welcome.
He piloted his own
Thank you
planes,
for
sponsored race
joining
cars
and
in
watching.
Indianapolis.
I hope
In
you're enjoying
1936,
stuff.
he had a
Sounds
personal
like you
hot
are.
rod design, which he raced on empty lake beds in Southern California. Shortly before World War II, though, he was in a serious accident when he was T-boned by a truck at an intersection.
Ooh.
He lived the rest of his life in considerable pain.
Mm.
In 1948, his mental health deteriorated, and the courts declared him mentally incompetent.
No doubt.
2 years later, the 44-year-old had a driver take him to the dentist in L.A. He went up 12 floors and jumped from the building, leaving his estate to an uncle.
I disagree,
Don
Your
Lee's
Honor.
Radio
The
Network and
evidence
Mutual were
states that
sold
he
in
did not kill
1951 to
himself,
General
but the gun
Teleradio,
actually
the
murdered
broadcasting
him.
arms of the General Tire Company. While it maintained the Don Lee logo, the spirit of independence and innovation ended. After a long series of sales where the company lost its logo and its name, the constituent parts were sold to Westinghouse in 1996. Westinghouse owned CBS and merged the radio stations with CBS Radio. It took a long time getting there, but eventually CBS would get control
I
of the Lee
think
network.
I remember
after all.
learning about this in college,
1948,
actually.
W6XAO stopped being an experimental station and became a fully commercial station under the new call sign KTSL-TV, with the TSL standing for Thomas Lee. And even then, Lovekey and the station continued to innovate. They built a huge antenna and dish that was dubbed the Mountain Shooter in order to broadcast the 1948 Tournament of Roses parade from Pasadena to Los Angeles. They built the antenna to offset the effects of a 200-foot mountain range, which blocked the transmission, in conjunction with a 9-foot diameter dish in Pasadena. But like the radio stations, the Lee television
9-foot
station wouldn't
dish
survive
in
Tommy's death. It was
Pasadena.
acquired by CBS on January 1st, 1951, and the call letters were changed to KNXT to match the local CBS radio station.
Oh man, look at the
KNX.
chonk on those early
The same
cameras.
station CBS had bought to replace Lee's radio station in 1936. Today it exists as KCBS Los Angeles. CBS moved the station off of Mount Lee, and the transmitter that remains is now owned and operated by the City of Los Angeles.
Anime Sensei
Harry Lovekey
TCT.
died in 1991,
Thanks,
almost
I already
completely unknown
established
and
here
largely
in Twitch for
unrecognized
planning
for
my
his
virtual
technical
stream,
innovations
Kyonko.
and his part as a television pioneer. When he died, it was not noted prominently even in local newspapers, and
Well,
it seems his
I
technical
hope
writings and
everything
journals
goes really
were
good
thrown
for you,
out.
Anime Sensei.
His legacy didn't end with his
Battler
work at the
or
Lee
Rosetto?
Network, however. He was
When are
president
we
of the
going to
Television
watch the
Academy
history
and
of
is
gamers?
credited with coining the name
Most oppressed
Image
minority in
Award,
society.
He suggested IMI,
Well,
term for
we
the
watched
Image Orthicon camera.
the history
he
of
co-founded the
Christian
Society of
yesterday, so
Television
that's kind of
Engineers in
like the
1940,
history of
and his
gamers.
later years became a patent
Because, you know, he's a
But for
gamer
the one-time
and
face of West Coast
a
television
Sonic
broadcasting,
fan,
few
and
people
Sonic
remember
fans are
his
like the
technical
most
innovations.
oppressed gamers in
Today,
the
Lovekey
already
and
most
Annelids
oppressed
are largely
minority, right?
forgotten. They're relegated to obscure trivia of early television history. Their independent streak, while laudable, just
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Uncle
There we go,
Magic, and
miladies.
tonight we're gonna wind down.
That's
a
pretty
little.
gamer friendly.
Because if you recall what I said in the last Tagger video, I need to take a break after this model. So I'm gonna build something small, simple, and just make it one of those just for fun projects. Yeah, I meant that. But somehow, after some brain malfunction in my head, I thought this abomination would fit the bill. A T90 in 1/72nd scale from a brand whose name I don't even dare to say out loud, because I don't know how to pronounce it and I'll need to Google it. So in the meantime, let's have some fun. My friends, those of you who didn't have the pleasure to deal with the kit from Revel, I don't know if I should pronounce it Revel or
Battler
Revel,
or
because
Rosetto.
double is very
Yeah,
confusing.
poor
So,
Chris Chan,
I'm gonna
the most
pronounce it
oppressed
Revel.
gamer. Time
So
to
if
rise
you didn't
up.
build anything from Revel so far, let me just say it mildly, you haven't missed out on anything. Now, my impression of Revel is that their models
Elino
are
Lau.
aimed at kids.
I think we watched his story
toddlers
like
mostly.
3 times this
Because
week.
you get them in every toy store, at least in Slovakia, and you have a very hard
Wow.
time finding them in a serious modeling store. They're basically Walmart bikes of the scale modeling world. They might look nice at a first glance.
Oh,
but if
thank you for the
start looking
subscription,
closer,
Sensei.
You'll begin to notice some red flags. Now, keep in mind this is a 2013 kit made in Germany, and this alone should be considered a stamp of quality. But if you expect some marvel of German engineering, boy oh boy,
Ooh.
are you in for some nasty surprise.
Those look
And
rough.
this is probably just me, so I'm not gonna be overly salty about it, but I find their instructions downright offensive. And it's not just this kit. I remember this from back when I was a toddler. Like, any other normal brand would guide you through, what, 10 or 12
Streamlabs.
clearly illustrated
Thank
steps?
you for
But
subscribing,
these fine
Sensei
gentlemen,
TCT
they
channel.
just don't know where to stop. 42 steps, ladies and gentlemen. Beautiful. Yeah, that's a cool little construction step over there, just gluing one single part to the hull. And check this one out. T-90 is the most modern battle tank in the Russian army. Not anymore, baby. Anyway, let's get this fun, relaxing project started.
Not anymore.
One could easily say that this is gonna be another example of my standard procedure when I ignore the instructions and assemble the main parts of the hull and turret so I can fix any fitting issues and texture everything. But not this time, because the tank has huge fenders and even bigger side skirts and very oddly designed tracks, so I had to take care of the running gear first. So, you know, there was
Ew.
the usual stuff like removing the sprue gates from the
Ugh.
wheels, then sanding them with the sponge, and also some damage on the rubber parts, because if you look up some real-life examples of this tank in action, there's always some damage. Initial fitting
True.
issues started while I was gluing the wheels together. The kit isn't exactly designed like a Lego set, so the parts just don't
Sensei
snap
TCT
together.
channel.
And so here
Oh
it's
boy,
important to
we're
check
going
and
back to
align
World War
each
II
one of them if you
LMAO.
want to keep the geometry of the entire lower hull in check. Fitting them on the hull means more problems, because the fit is very uneven. Some hold in place just fine, others are loose and are gonna fall off.
Oh, yeah,
This
those are
means
rough.
we will need to glue them in place, which is, it's a bummer because painting won't be as easy, but I anticipated this. So before we attach the tracks, we need to make sure all the wheels are perfectly aligned and glued firmly in their place. This is actually quite simple, just add glue to each wheel and get them aligned while the bond is still soft. This can be done in multiple ways, either by hand to get them roughly aligned, and then with some straight metal object which won't bend on its own, and thus will get them pretty much straight. Then I left them to dry overnight, and in the meantime I prepared the tracks. These are full of pin marks, but luckily most of them go above the surface, so it's easy to sand them down. This will destroy some detail on the end connectors, but it's nothing significant, and after some cleanup with the fiberglass pencil, the tracks are gonna look much, much better. By now you must have noticed the weird design of those tracks, which are just two straight sections for each side. And the instructions say... Okay.
Oh no. Really?
So I've put them into not boiling water, left them there for, I don't know, 5 minutes, and nothing. Like, I mean, this isn't flexible enough to wrap them around the entire running gear. And because I didn't want to break them, I had to resort to another method. So first of all, I had to make sure the track will fit around the drive sprocket. Then I superglued the track to the road wheels.
Yeah.
Now we have a good starting point, so I also glued the second half of the track in place, making sure the spacing between links was the same like on the rest of the track, because otherwise this spot would be very easy to spot. So now we need to get ourselves some heat. And as you can guess, the point is to heat up the track around each bend, which will make the plastic softer and then quickly bend it into desired shape. The track will always try to return to its former shape, so I had to frequently use
Battler or
glue to hold
Rosetto.
it in place.
Anyway, Kyonko,
Of course, in
I have
spots
to go
where
to
it won't be
sleep.
visible.
Hope you had a
Now,
great
it's very
day and a
easy to
good
apply
night.
too much
I
heat
did,
and
thank you.
damage the
You have a good
track,
night.
which
Sleep
happened
well.
to me on the other side, and that's definitely something you don't want to happen in a visible
Battler or
spot.
Rosetto.
Now let's get
Good
back to
night.
what I said
Good
earlier
night.
about these
Hope
models
you
being
sleep well.
marketed towards children. Like, can anyone imagine a, let's say, 6 or 8-year-old child getting this type of modeling, being able to assemble this kit? Or even better, imagine this dad who's trying to get his kid interested in his childhood hobby. So they get this kit and then they go to, you know, build it together. And imagine this dad who hasn't seen a scale model in like 20 years struggling with this. Yeah. I mean, it's not funny, but or at least it shouldn't be, but it is. But yeah, I mean, seriously, Revol knows their market. They know their main distributors, aka toy stores. So why in the world they decide to design their kits like this? Why you not do it like S-Model? Just mold the wheels and tracks as a single part. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna lose details and the production cost will go up like, what, 5 cents? But at least your customers will be able to enjoy your product. But anyway, after I was done, the track didn't touch the ground evenly, and even though it was a small mistake, I didn't like it. So I gently sanded it against a pretty rough sandpaper placed on a straight sheet of metal, which luckily did the trick. Okay, so now we can move on to the upper hull. The tank that I'm building is missing the front fender sections, so I've cut them off with a rotary tool. Now when we look at them, they're not exactly the definition of scale thickness, so I had to thin them down. Again with the rotary tool to quickly remove most of the plastic, then with a metal file, and finally with a hobby blade. With this task out of the way, I could glue the upper hull in place and focus on the side skirts, which will also need some work because they're quite beat up on the real tank. By the way, the tank I'm trying to replicate is one of the few that were sent to Syria. Am I pronouncing it right? Syria? Syria?
Syria?
It's probably Syria. This one in
Syria.
particular was later hit by an RPG, but it survived and continued fighting. I can't show you the real thing because the pictures belong to news agencies, but in case you're interested, you'll be able to find them on Google. So, as you can tell, I had to make the side skirts paper thin in order to bend them like the real thing. I separated the individual sections with a razor saw and then bent each one of them with a pair of tweezers. The result looks a bit chaotic, so after gluing them in place, I made some diluted putty. This is, Tamiya putty diluted with extra thin cement, and I brushed it onto the rubber flaps. This makes them look cleaner for the time being, until I paint them, and it also gives them a nice matte texture. And it also softens some of the edges. Now keep in mind, I'm not
This is like
creating
ASMR
anything
for my
harsh here.
eyes.
No armor texture or anything like that.
This reminds me of like that scene from Toy Story 2, watching the guy like
Hello, cute Oni-chan.
super sexy boy big opai nekomimi Oni-chan. Hi, how are you doing,
I won't be able to
Oni-chan?
use the original headlight covers no matter what, because they're totally out of
Do
scale
you
and are in
come
plain
here
sight.
often?
So I had to bend new ones from 0.3mm copper wire and super glue them in place. It's not the prettiest job because I didn't want to spend too much time on those, but it's still objectively better than the original parts. If nothing else, they at least look more in scale.
Man, this guy puts more
And
work into
job
this,
was so discouraging
trying
I
to make
decided
this
take a
model
break
work.
and focus on the turret. So the first thing I did was to remove the spaced armor on one side, which is where the tank was hit, and this side got completely blown off. And I actually want to make some cool effects here in the next video, and so then I added the obligatory armor texture on all the thick pieces, and also on the anti-radiation cladding, which also has a very distinct texture. And then I just kinda spent some time gluing a few surface details in place. The storage boxes are actually pretty well designed, and they just need a little bit of filling to make them look like a box. And here I actually use super glue mixed with powder, which is then super easy to scrape off. And I also gave them a quick coat of primer and polished them to check if every gap was filled. And yeah, this might be probably the only part of the kit that I genuinely thought was well engineered.
Super sexy boing boing big up hi Nico Mimi Oni-chan.
Improvement, so to say, was to
Wow, also
replace
make
this
texture.
part with a new one made from wire. The smoke dischargers were empty on the real tank, at least at the moment when it was photographed, and it's one of the details that adds some character to the model and makes it look more used.
Wow.
So I decided to drill them out. This is not very fun, to be honest, but it's gonna look interesting. And the remaining parts on the turret were just tiny details that I had to literally extract from the sprues like some kind of archaeologist. They had oversized sprue gates, heavy flash and seam lines, and the overall quality was very low, and it wasn't very enjoyable either. But hey, with the last part in place, it was time to make some improvements.
I guess so.
So the first one was the ugly dust cover. I wasn't able to film the entire process, but what I basically did was to cover the entire part in a thin layer of Tamiya epoxy putty, which I normally use to sculpt weld beads, and the occasional tarp, and then I sculpted it into this shape with a toothpick.
Oh yeah, that's a lot
I'm really
better.
sorry for this, but I had to turn the model around all the time, and I wasn't able to get a good angle to film it. I promise I'll try again next time, but I mean, it doesn't even look that good, so... After this, I felt more motivated to make the model look better, so I decided to slightly improve
This is like
the shape of the
seeing
turret.
someone
At
save
least the
like
front
a sick
section, which was only about
dog.
gluing 2 sheets of plastic at the front and then reshaping the edges with a file.
It's like this
and then,
man
of
is
course, reapplying the armor texture.
taking
Then I made
tragedy
some
and
missing
making art
details
out of
from
it.
pieces of styrene. The cable guides were molded onto the turret, but I decided to rework them because they were too small. That's one of the problems with this kit. Normally you get, a lot of oversized parts which are out of scale, but here you also get a ton of undersized details. Mostly those which are molded on the surface. Here I made the mounts for the missing spaced armor, and I know in real life they're hollow threaded tubes, but I think this will do just fine considering the overall quality of the kit, and the fact it won't be exactly a masterpiece once it's done. Yeah, Yeah, excuses.
Putting those
If there's
little
one
dots
step
on,
that I think
holy.
saved this model, it's this. There are a lot of small bolts and other circular details on the real tank, and most of them are either missing, or they are too small, again the syndrome of undersizing, or they are mushy, like they're started melting. So I removed all of them and replaced them with small circles punched with a drill bit from a tin foil. It's a technique which I'm describing in my KV220 video, so if you're not familiar with it, you can check the link in the description or on your screen. I also added a few cables and hoses made from lead wire. These are just a very crude representation of the real thing, but I think they also make the model look a lot better. And yeah, the turret is now finished. Unfortunately, the large turret-mounted machine gun was completely unusable, which is unfortunate because it's a really cool detail and it's present on the real tank. But anyway, let's get back to the hull. So here I started by adding some texture to a few details. In this case it was mostly on the anti-radiation cladding because the rest of the hull is relatively smooth. And I also added some missing bolt heads. The ones I made from tinfoil are too round to be considered bolt heads, but in this case it's at least something, and something is better than nothing.
Wow.
At least in this situation. You know, the more detail the better, and it's gonna be more interesting once I start painting it. The last missing detail was on the rear plate. Here we are supposed to glue the wooden unditching beam, but this accessory is often missing on Syrian tanks. I didn't want to solve this by just, not using it, so I at least made very simplified brackets from copper sheet. They came out a little smaller than
Like how
they
we put
should be,
subscribe
so
on the back part
technically
there.
I wouldn't be able to fit the beam inside, but I so didn't care. I was just glad this was the last missing detail and I could finally consider the build done. Well, almost. The real tank had a few sandbags on the turret. Later it's been photographed with some more on the hull, but I added them only here. Again, I found it hard to film the process, but basically I rolled a thick noodle from Tamiya epoxy putty and formed the basic sandbag shape with my fingers. After placing it on the model, I again sculpted it into shape with a toothpick. I gotta say, they look pretty bad, and part of me wishes I didn't include them, but it's not such a big deal. And I'll try harder next time, I promise.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to sculpt a bag.
Anyway, this nightmare of a model is ready for some paint, and I'm gonna take the opportunity to test some new methods and approaches to weathering on this one. It's small, it's not very good, so, what's the worst thing that can happen? So if you're interested in seeing that, make sure to tune in the next Friday. In the meantime, I want to say a big thank you for watching all the way to the end of the video. Also a massive thank you to my awesome patrons who make this weekly show possible. And as usual, there's a lot going on over there, so if you'd like to get almost daily updates from my workbench and...
Welcome everybody to a very unusual Databits video. Today we're going to be
Actually, I think that might be it